Chapter 1521. In the Milky Way Grand World, the battle was getting more and more intense. The undying phoenix was fighting the strongest deities of the six heavens realm. Blood stained every inch of the starry sky. During the battle, Ning Chen was distracted by the change in the Yama king of the underworld. However, a battle between monarchs could not be neglected. It was this momentary lapse of concentration that Wu Yutian seized the opportunity to tear apart the phoenix's wings and severely injure knowing destiny once again. At the moment of life and death, Ning Chen's strong will to survive ignited his blood vitality. The phoenix was reborn from the ashes. The blazing phoenix wings covered the stars in the sky. Waves of fire swept across, shocking the world. With the wings regenerated, Ning Chen's aura rose again. He fully unleashed his power. Phoenix fire filled the sky and covered the entire starry sky. In an instant, the phoenix fire burned in the sky above the realm of Wuyin. The celestial lords in the 8 regions were shocked. It was Marquis Ning. What kind of enemy is knowing destiny facing? Yi Xuanmiao looked at the raging phoenix fire in the sky and said in a low voice. This power was too terrifying. Knowing destiny's aura was already so strong, but it was still difficult for him to gain the upper hand. In the sky above the realm of Wu Yutian, outside the endless time and space, Ning Chen recovered and attacked again. He gathered the phoenix fire in the sky and slashed down with his sword. The deities had no time to react to the sudden change. The celestial sword slashed the deity's body. A horrible sword wound appeared from his left shoulder to his right rib. Blood stained his divine robe. The situation was reversed. Ning Chen did not give the deity a chance to fight back. He grabbed the deity's shoulder and smashed him toward the stars in the distance. In the phoenix fire, the deity flew out like a meteor and crashed into the stars in the distance. In the starry sky, Ning Chen's wings flapped and he flew forward. In the collapsed stars, Ning Chen arrived. He looked at the deity in the dust and slashed with his sword. Sword chi broke through the sky. The stars were cut open. Divine blood splattered and dyed the sky red again. Ning Chen narrowed his eyes. He flapped his wings and swooped down. Amidst the waves of dust, Wu Yutian's figure appeared. Raging waves surged in his hands, and furious thunder roared. Terrifying divine vitality counterattacked. However, Phoenix's speed was one step faster than his. Before the god's technique could be used, Ning Chen's figure had already arrived. He raised his hand, grabbed the god's face, and flung it away. In the starry sky, the deity's body smashed one boulder after another. 1,000 miles away, he barely managed to stop himself. The severely injured deity was covered in blood. His expression was ferocious. Although his killing intent was shocking, his aura was much weaker than before. 1,000 miles away, Wu Yutian steadied himself and scanned the area with his divine perception. The void in front of him was distorted and phoenix fire was surging. A plain-clothed figure appeared once again. It was so fast that it surpassed the limits of time and space. It was as if it had teleported. In the blink of an eye, the sword light arrived once more. Wu Yutian raised his hands and crossed his palms. Divine essence surged as he blocked the immortal sword. Since the deity was injured, he didn't have enough time to recover his energy. His body sank, and he couldn't resist the great force of the sword. He was forced back several steps. 9 heavens star plucking hand, final form, reverse formless form. Ning Chen was about to succeed. He dashed out like a thunderbolt, and his earth-shaking palm landed on the deity's chest. The shocking palm instantly destroyed half of the deity's martial bones. With the ear-piercing sound of bones breaking, Wu Yutian's body flew out again, blood spurting out of his mouth. His foundation was destroyed, his martial bones were destroyed, and the deity's aura was shaken again. His severely injured body couldn't be repaired. 100 miles away, Wu Yutian stopped retreating. He sensed the changes in his body, and fear appeared on his face. After a fierce battle, the will and combat power of humans gradually surpassed that of deities. At this moment, even the deity revealed the fear and shock that only humans could have. 100 miles away, the phoenix spread its wings. In the void, red thunderbolts galloped past. With a slash of the sword, the deity's chest was torn open again. On Wu Yutian's chest, 2 horrifying sword scars crisscrossed. The old wounds hadn't healed, and new ones were added. In the irreversible battle, the phoenix had the upper hand, severely injuring the deity again and again. In the starry sky, the battle was completely suppressed. The deity's body flew out again and again, smashing one star after another. The phoenix was reborn in the battle. Its strength kept rising. It stood in the divine realm and focused on the battle. It was almost perfect. The Xing River Great World had been completely destroyed. In the starry sky, the phoenix fire spread to almost every corner. In the fire, the phoenix flapped its wings. It was as if the ancestral phoenix of ancient times had revived, blazing and powerful. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! The deity's face became more and more distorted. He panted heavily and roared like a wild beast. His face was full of unwillingness. Deity, where is your pride now? Ning Chen's figure swept over and grabbed the deity's arm. He swung the deity around like a straw and smashed him toward a distant star. With a rumble, the deity flew out and smashed one star after another. Before he could stop, a white-haired figure swept past and waited there. 12 styles of spiritual rhino, 8 void dragons. The ultimate move of moon worship appeared again. In the sky full of phoenix fire, 8 dragons swallowed the heavens and destroyed the earth, destroying the deity's body. As the palm energy hit his body, the deity let out a painful groan. His body fell like a meteor and smashed into a huge meteorite. The huge impact shattered the star. In the sky, the phoenix swooped down. Its cold eyes were emotionless. The closer Ning Chen got to the ancestral phoenix bloodline, the faster the emotions in his heart faded. Even the blazing phoenix fire couldn't hide the coldness in his eyes. Boom! In the sky above the huge deep pit, the phoenix swooped down and smashed the star into dust with a punch. Strong, undeniably strong. After 1,000 years of cultivation, the knowing destiny state had finally touched the realm of deities. Facing the strongest deities in the 6 heavens realm, he had never bowed his head. Sword art, sword reverse dark yellow. At the end of the battle, the wings behind Ning Chen's back kept flapping. The power of the immortal slayer in his hand rose rapidly. The sword that pierced through heaven and earth reached the 9 heavens. It was a shocking sword. Between heaven and earth, phoenix fire surged and gathered toward the immortal sword. The sword condensed into phoenix fire and slashed down under the deity's fearful gaze. The sword cut through the starry sky and cut through everything. It was like the end of time. A ferocious beast opened its huge mouth and swallowed the deity in front of it. The aura of death shrouded the deity. The fear in Wu Tian's eyes grew. Endless madness erupted on his face. The divine vitality in his body surged as he flew toward the end of the starry sky. The sword light slashed down and destroyed the deity's vitality. However, the deity's body didn't stop. With the help of the sword, his speed became more and more astonishing. Behind him, Ning Chen's expression changed slightly. He flapped his wings and chased after the deity. What is Wu Tian trying to do? In the starry sky, 2 figures flashed past, one after the other. The deity burned his divine vitality crazily. Even with the phoenix's speed, Ning Chen couldn't catch up. In the sky above the Wu Tian realm, under the shocked eyes of the celestial lords, 2 figures appeared. They didn't stop for a moment. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared at the end of the heaven realm. Wu Tian, Taichu Tian, Tajing Tian, Wuji Tian, Separation and Reunion Tian. The 2 of them flew past layer after layer of heavens and rushed toward the heavens realm. In the heavens realm, on the vast land, the sovereigns looked at the sky with surprise. It's Ning Chen. Didn't he go to Wu Tian? Why is he back? In the northern territory, in front of the water cloud imperial palace, the water empress walked out. After so many years, her beautiful face still hadn't changed. The water empress looked up at the sky, her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. Something is wrong. There is another person with an extremely powerful aura, which even makes her a little scared. Is that a deity? Boom. In the sky above the heaven realm, two figures flashed past and went far away. At the end of the heavens realm, in the endless void, two figures flew past, and their speed kept increasing. Behind them, Ning Chen looked at the deity in front of him, and the uneasiness in his eyes grew. This direction is the human world. Why is Wu Yutian going in this direction? Even a deity couldn't cross the barrier between the human world and the heavens realm. This was the rule of the Great Path, and it couldn't be violated. While thinking, two figures flashed past the void. At the end of the darkness, a ray of light appeared. It was the human world. At the border between the human world and the heavens realm, the two figures were getting closer and closer. Just when Ning Chen thought Wu Tian was going to force his way into the human world, the deity suddenly changed direction and sped away. Seeing this, Ning Chen became more and more confused and uneasy. He could only continue to chase. At this moment, a huge stone pillar appeared at the end of their vision, supporting the human world and the heavens. It was a shocking sight. The heavenly pillar. Ning Chen's pupils shrank fiercely. In the memory given to him by his master, he had seen this heavenly pillar. At that time, it was cut in half by the Lord of the North Celestial Realm, which accelerated the outbreak of the Great Tribulation of heaven and earth. Not good. Guessing Wu Yutian's purpose, Ning Chen's expression changed. The immortal slaying sword in his hand flew out, trying to stop the deity in front of him. However, Wu Yutian, who was almost crazy, was desperate. Even if the immortal slaying sword cut his body, he still wouldn't stop. The next moment, a shocking scene happened. The deity, who was tainted with divine soul and divine essence, crashed into the heavenly pillar. Then, the whole world began to shake violently. In the human world and the six heavens realm, a terrible disaster broke out. The earth cracked, and fire soared into the sky. It was as if the end of the world had come again. In the human world, the major star fields and the inner realm, people were terrified, especially the martial artists in the divine land. They seemed to recall the scene of Doomsday when the Lord of Hell descended 1,000 years ago. In front of the heavenly pillar, Ning Chen looked at the collapsed heavenly pillar in front of him. For the first time, his eyes showed powerlessness. He knew that the sky had collapsed. The heavenly pillar collapsed. In the human world, a corner of the heavenly realm fell. The whole world seemed to be tilted. The terrible Great Tribulation made all living beings cry. In the human world, at the end of the 4 star fields, the 4 symbols deities that Ji Ming, 9 Nether, and the others nourished with blood to stop the Great Tribulation of heaven and earth appeared. The azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise, for huge shadows appeared, holding up the tilted heaven and earth with their bodies. However, in just a few breaths, the bodies of the 4 symbols deities dissipated, unable to support this huge heaven and earth. The human world and the heavenly realm sank. The end of the world had come. The shocking changes finally alarmed the highest deity above the 9 heavens. Across the endless untainted land, in the last 3 levels of heaven far away, black feathers were drifting in the air. A supreme deity who looked down on the ancient times opened his eyes and looked at the human world and the heaven realm in the distance with a strange look on his face. The Great Tribulation of heaven and earth? Humans, this is your last chance. Don't disappoint the deity. Chapter 1522. At the intersection of the human realm and heaven realm, the gods rammed into the sky pillar. Suddenly, the sky pillar collapsed, and a catastrophe descended. In the human realm and the 6 heavens, heaven and earth tilted, the earth cracked, and fire gushed into the sky. Everywhere one looked, disasters and catastrophes were everywhere. The soul-stirring scenes made one feel fear. In the human realm, Ji Ming and the others tried to stop the 4 symbols from reviving. However, it collapsed completely in a few seconds. The 4 symbols' origins scattered between heaven and earth, disappearing bit by bit. Terrifying cracks appeared in the human realm and heaven realm. After the sky pillar collapsed, the 2 realms seemed to be connected. In front of the collapsed sky pillar, Ning Chen looked at the changes in the heaven realm and human realm. Even if he wanted to stop it, he couldn't. In the sky above the desireless heaven realm, outside the endless space-time, the Yama king of the underworld looked at the shocking changes in heaven and earth. His confused eyes froze, as if he remembered something. Ah! Suddenly, the Yama king of the underworld groaned in pain, and his body trembled violently. The memories of the ancient era flooded the Yama king's consciousness. It was a familiar scene. A catastrophe of heaven and earth, and the fall of the immortal master. In pain, the Yama king of the underworld revealed a crazed expression. Ghost chi surged around him, and a terrifying power swept out rapidly. In the distance, the 3 dragon corpses pulled the palanquin over. Divine light filled the air, and they carried the Yama king of the underworld away. In the sky above the desireless heaven realm, demonic chi surged. Hua Zhongdia and Xia Zi returned and went their separate ways. I'll go find Ning Chen. You take Luo Fei and the others and leave as soon as possible. Hua Zhongdia said. She didn't stop and rushed toward the source of the calamity. Between the 6 heavens, the demonic butterfly sped past. Its huge black butterfly wings surged with demonic chi, and its destructive power tore through the space-time. At the same time, Xia Zi arrived at the desireless heaven realm and immediately looked for the experts from the human realm. When the catastrophe of heaven and earth arrived, no one dared to say that they could survive. The only thing they could do was to protect their last loved ones in this world. On the Tianji Peak, Luo Xingchen and the others saw Xia Zi return and immediately went forward. Zi, what happened? Madame Luofei asked. There's no time to explain. Let's go. Xia Zi looked at the increasingly shocking crack in the sky and said, let's leave this place first. Luo Xingchen asked anxiously. I don't know. Xia Zi said solemnly, go wherever it's safe. This place might be destroyed soon. What about these people? Mu Qianshang looked at the millions of Ning clan soldiers and commoners in front of him and said with a heavy expression, are we abandoning them all? Everyone's expression darkened when they heard this. Many of these people were comrades who had fought side by side with them. How could they abandon them? Try your best to save as many as you can. Among the crowd, Qing Ning looked at the vast and boundless heaven realm and said, this world should be able to hold on for a while longer. 10 days, we'll leave together in 10 days. All right. Mu Qianshang nodded and said in a deep voice. 10 days. We will use our powers and try to bring as many people away as possible. The experts of the human world all responded, expressing their agreement. Seeing that everyone had made up their minds, Xia Zi did not say anything else. Perhaps, these people would be of use in the future. If the heavens and earth were destroyed, no one would be able to survive. If one wanted to mend the heavens, one more person would mean one more portion of strength. On the Tianji Peak, the experts of the mortal world left one after another, trying their best to save people. In the Ning clan army, the heavenly venerable level experts also left to help the experts of the mortal world save people. At the border between the mortal world and heaven realm, demonic aura surged. Demonic butterfly rushed over and stopped when she saw the white-haired man in front of her. In front of the collapsed heavenly pillar, Hua Zhongdia saw the huge gap between heaven and earth and was shocked. What happened? Hua Zhongdia came back to her senses and asked in shock. Desireless heaven destroyed the heavenly pillar. The heavens have collapsed. Ning Chen clenched his fists and said in a deep voice. Hua Zhongdia was shocked when she heard this. Heavenly pillar? Senior sister Dai, where are Zi and the rest? Ning Chen asked. Before I came to find you, I asked Xia Zi to leave with Luo Fei and the rest. Hua Zhongdia replied. Ning Chen nodded. His gaze swept across the huge cracks between the mortal world and heaven realm and said, Senior sister Dai, look at these cracks. Hua Zhongdia heard this and looked at the huge cracks that appeared between heaven and earth. This is... Seeing the familiar scene at the end of the cracks, Hua Zhongdia was shocked and said, the mortal world. Ning Chen nodded and said with a heavy expression, maybe soon, the 6 heavenly realms and the mortal world will be connected. This was the most terrifying thing. When the end of the world comes, etiquette and rules will collapse. The ugliness of people's hearts will be magnified infinitely. If the mortal world and heaven realm, where there is an extreme disparity in strength, are connected, there will be cannibalism again. What are you going to do? Hua Zhongye asked. When the passage between the mortal world and heaven realm is opened, I will return to the mortal world immediately. Also, speaking of this, Ningchen looked at the collapsed fragments of the heavenly pillar in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Do your best to find a way to repair the heavenly pillar." Even if they patched up the sky, the heavenly pillar could not be repaired. They could not stop the spread of the great calamity of heaven and earth. Repairing the heavenly pillar was urgent. There was another thing that he was also very concerned about. That was the memory that his master gave him. During the great calamity of ancient times, there was a terrible variable. If what that figure said when he left was true, this great calamity would come again. Where did that dark schemer who could fight with the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm come from? What kind of existence was he? Nothing was known. An unknown enemy was even more terrifying. They knew nothing about that darkness. They could not even think of a way to deal with it. Let's return to the realm of the gods first. After thinking for a long time, Ningchen looked at the woman beside him and said, "The rulers of the realm of the gods had experienced the calamity of ancient times. Perhaps they knew something." Hua Zhongye nodded and flapped her wings to follow. "Have you found Xen Yu's soul?" On the way back to the realm of the gods, Hua Zhongye asked. "No," Ningchen replied. "When desireless heaven destroyed the heavenly pillar, I did not sense the souls of those living in the mortal realm. I need to seek Yama King's help for this matter. She is the sovereign of the underworld and no one can compare to her in terms of sensing souls. Perhaps she can find Xen Yu's soul." As the two spoke, they were getting closer and closer to the realm of the gods. On the land of the realm of the gods, the great calamity of the apocalypse arrived. The whole world began to collapse, and the people were in a terrible situation. Water Cloud Imperial Palace, Sunrise Divine Palace, and Mount Shumi, the three rulers took action to protect their own territories. But they still could not stop the great calamity from spreading. In the sky of Sunrise Divine Palace, Phoenix flames spread. Ningchen and Demonic Butterfly arrived and descended on the palace. In front of the palace, the Moon Goddess and Sunrise Flood God took action to stop the calamity. Even though they worked together, they could not stop the changes in the world. Ningchen arrived. With a wave of his hand, a sword appeared. With one strike, he stopped the violently shaking southern border. With Xi Ming's help, the Moon Goddess and Sunrise Flood God were able to temporarily stop. When they saw the newcomer, their expressions turned serious. "Flood God, do you know how to repair the heavenly pillar?" Ningchen asked directly. "I do," Sunrise Flood God said in a low voice. "Chaos Earth, Chaos Fire, Chaos Water, and Chaos Wood." Ningchen did not look happy at all when he heard the former's affirmative answer. This was because he had never even heard of these four chaos divine items before. In the Western world of Buddhism, Buddha Mountain, the demon sovereign in black stood at the peak of the mountain. He looked at the southern border and said, "Ningchen, come to Buddha Mountain as soon as possible." In Sunrise Divine Palace, everyone heard the demon sovereign's voice and looked to the west. "Go," the Moon Goddess said softly. Ningchen nodded. The phoenix wings on his back opened, and he flew to the western world of Buddhism. In front of Buddha Mountain, space twisted. Ningchen walked out. He looked at the demon sovereign in front of him and said, "Demon sovereign, what is it?" "You must be prepared," the demon sovereign said in a low voice. The demon lord said in a low voice, "Darkness has descended upon the human world." Ningchen had heard this before. He was shocked. So fast. Chapter 1523. Western World of Buddhism, Mount Shumi. Knowing destiny came and the demon lord told him about the coming of darkness. Hearing about the coming of darkness, Ningchen was shocked. He didn't expect the darkness to come so quickly. In the ancient calamity, the darkness came at the end of the calamity. Now that the calamity had just begun, the darkness had already come. Demon Lord, where did the power of darkness come from? In front of Mount Shumi, Ningchen looked at the demon lord in front of him and asked seriously. "I don't know." The demon lord shook his head and said seriously, "In the ancient times, The darkness suddenly came during the calamity. No one had ever seen it before. Even the ancient books left in the various immortal realms didn't record it. Maybe only the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm who fought with the darkness knows something. Ningchen heard this and his expression became more serious. This was really bad news. The collapse of the pillars of heaven will affect the sixth heaven realm and the human world. This calamity is even more terrible than the ancient times. You have to plan well. The human world may not be able to be protected, the demon lord said seriously. Ningchen was silent. After a moment, he said, "The calamity is coming. Demon lord, why are you doing your best to protect the land of Buddhism?" Hearing the former's question, the demon lord looked at the once prosperous land in front of him and said softly, "I love this land. Compared to the barren demon realm, there are pious people and beautiful mountains and rivers here, not endless death. Tens of thousands of years ago, we were driven into the demon realm by Buddha West approaches. We have been waiting for the day to return to the world of Buddhism. Now that we are finally back, how can we give up this beautiful land so easily?" Compared to the man-eating Buddha on Mount Shumi, the demon lord is more like the master of this land. Ningchen sighed. The Buddha ate people, but the demon protected the land of the world of Buddhism with his life. Was it really important whether he was a Buddha or a demon? Soon, the heaven realm and the human world will be connected. Have you thought about what will happen then? The demon lord asked seriously. Man-eating. Ningchen said in a low voice, "Under the doomsday, the rules of etiquette will collapse. The power gap between the sixth heaven realm and the human world is too big. I have thought about this, but I can only try my best to stop it." "You can't stop it," the demon lord said seriously. "You can't stop a world where people's hearts are crumbling. I advise you to take you and your friends away and find a pure land. With your cultivation, you should be able to protect them for a short period of time. If the nest is overturned, no eggs will remain intact. Where can we go under this great tribulation of heaven and earth?" Ningchen looked at the collapsing sky and said, "I will leave, but not now. At the very least, I have to find a truly safe place for them." Boom. Just as the two of them were conversing, the void in the northern sky trembled, and a huge crack appeared once again. Instantly, the entire northern region began to shake. On the Buddha mountain, Ningchen and the Honorable Demon sensed it, and their expressions changed. "Something has happened to the Empress," the demon lord said. "I'll go," Ningchen said in a serious voice. Phoenix flames rose around his body again. He spread his phoenix wings and rushed to the north. In the northern territory of the firmament, huge cracks appeared in the sky above. The ground below was also filled with devastation and calamity. Empress Shui-Yun, who was supposed to protect the northern realms, didn't do anything. Instead, she allowed the tribulation to ravage the northern realms. In the horizon, under the great cracks, phoenixes sped through, rushing toward the water cloud imperial palace. Not long after, in front of the water cloud imperial palace, phoenix fire filled the air. Ningchen walked out and looked at the imperial palace below with a serious expression. Something was wrong. The imperial palace was quiet, without any sound, as if it was a dead city. In the void, Ningchen descended from the sky and walked to the front of the imperial palace. The doors of the imperial palace were tightly shut. Ningchen stepped forward and pushed open the doors. In the next moment, a shocking scene appeared before his eyes. In the imperial palace, Goddess Shui-Yun fell into a pool of blood one after another. None of them survived. Seeing this, Ningchen's expression changed. Something had happened. Ningchen walked into the imperial palace and released his divine sense to search for the empress's aura. Suddenly, above the imperial palace, behind the curtain, a powerful aura erupted. It was so shocking. Ningchen's expression froze and he looked over. The curtain flew up, and a familiar figure appeared on the bed. Her peerless appearance was still the same as before. However, although the beauty's appearance didn't change, her aura had completely changed. Her black eyes didn't have a trace of white. On the bed, the Empress got up. Her body was filled with a black aura, and her aura became more and more shocking. The power of darkness. Seeing this, Ningchen's expression changed. In the main hall, the Empress moved. Without saying a word, she rushed to the hall in an instant. Ningchen came back to his senses and immediately blocked. The two palms collided. In the shocking vibration, Ningchen took half a step back, and his divine essence quickly dissipated. It was his first time fighting with darkness. The power of darkness was shocking. Even someone as strong as his divine essence couldn't resist it. The power of darkness and light collided. The power of light faded and was swallowed by the darkness, disappearing. Boom! The moment Ningchen retreated, the Empress took a step forward and pressed her palm on his chest again. The powerful palm sent Ningchen flying hundreds of feet away. He directly smashed through the doors of the Imperial Palace and flew out. In the Imperial Palace, the Empress took a step forward and rushed out of the main hall. Outside the main hall, the Empress's dark aura rose rapidly. An earth-shattering palm pressed down forcefully. Ningchen stabilized his body. Demonic aura surged around him as he tried to use his demonic essence to resist the power of darkness. The two palms collided again, and a rumbling sound rang out. Under the power of darkness, the demonic essence was also swallowed. It was difficult to resist. In the face of darkness, the power of light in the mortal world seemed so weak. Although demons weren't recognized by the world, they were still in existence of light. It was difficult for them to resist the darkness. Just as the knowing destiny state was completely suppressed by the power of darkness, in the heavenly realm of desolation, many strong cultivators of the mortal world collectively left. Behind them, celestial venerables followed. Each celestial venerable protected a piece of land and tried to bring as many people as possible. Every celestial venerable had the ability to move mountains and seas. In this doomsday, they did their best to help all living beings. Not long after the strong cultivators of the mortal world left the heavenly realm of desolation, behind them, heaven and earth collapsed. The entire world shook violently and was destroyed. In the void world, on a piece of land that looked like a floating island, looked back and saw the collapsed heavenly realm of desolation. Her face was filled with sorrow. Before the doomsday, human strength was so weak. Even celestial venerables could only run for their lives, not to mention those weak mortals. Boom! In the void world, under the protection of the celestial venerables, the floating islands moved forward in the void, looking for a safe place. Suddenly, one of the floating islands shook violently. Black airflow filled the air. On the floating island, all living beings died immediately. They couldn't resist the power of darkness. On the floating island, a celestial venerable level strong cultivator was swallowed by the darkness before he could even react. His spirit dissipated. What is that? On the floating island at the forefront, witnessed this scene with her own eyes and was shocked. Around her, the strong cultivators of the mortal world looked back. When they saw the floating island in the distance that instantly turned dead silent, they were also shocked. On the dead floating island, the dark airflow filled the air and spread to the other floating islands. Darkness descended, and the three realms suffered together. Chapter 1524. Outside the Wuyu heavens, the powerhouses of the mortal realm were escorting thousands of creatures away. Unexpectedly, darkness suddenly descended, and a calamity befell the world. In the blink of an eye, all the creatures on the floating islands were swallowed by the darkness, and their divine souls were scattered. On the floating island at the forefront, the powerhouses of the mortal realm were shocked to see this. Behind them, the darkness spread toward the neighboring floating islands. Before they could resist, the neighboring floating islands immediately screamed in horror. Everyone watched as all the creatures on the floating islands were quickly swallowed by the darkness. It was a scene they had never seen before. No one knew what the black airflow on the floating islands behind them was. The unknown made them even more terrified. You guys go first. On the floating island at the forefront, Xia Zi's demonic aura surged out as he flew backward. Zi! Luofei looked anxious and said, "Be careful." Behind the floating islands, the darkness spread. Xia Zi flew over and clenched his right hand, and the mad doomsday appeared out of thin air. In an instant, demonic aura surged in the void, resisting the spreading darkness. However, in just a few breaths, the darkness broke through the demonic aura's barrier and spread. It was a shocking scene. Even someone as strong as Xia Zi couldn't resist the darkness that appeared out of nowhere. Ha! Seeing that the darkness was unstoppable, Xia Zi shouted. The black feathers around his body fluttered, and the 12 wings of sin appeared behind him. Suddenly, an abnormally pure demonic aura surged in front of the darkness, forcibly stopping the darkness from spreading. A violent impact spread out as the two forces devoured each other. Xia Zi released all of his power to buy time for the people behind him to leave. Behind him, the powerhouses of the mortal realm drove the floating islands away with all their might. They didn't want to let Xia Zi's efforts go to waste. In a quarter of an hour, the floating islands disappeared into the void. In front of the darkness, Xia Zi finally exhausted his last bit of strength and was swallowed by the darkness. At this moment, Leve, who was rushing over at full speed, saw this scene and was shocked. She stepped forward and grabbed Xia Zi's hand. In the blink of an eye, the darkness spread and completely swallowed the two of them. Just as Xia Zi and Luofei were in trouble, in the divine realm, in front of the water cloud imperial palace, Ning Chen was facing the empress who was swallowed by the darkness. He was also in danger. The power of darkness was beyond imagination. Facing an opponent he knew nothing about, Ning Chen quickly fell into a disadvantageous position after just a few moves. God, devil, and immortal, these three types of true essence were all restrained by darkness. The power of light seemed so weak in front of the darkness, unable to withstand a single blow. The empress, who had completely turned evil, was even more powerful than before. Coupled with the characteristics of the power of darkness, she had completely suppressed the knowing destiny state cultivators. The shocking battle attracted the attention of the two rulers of Nanjiang and Foshan. They looked toward the north with shocked expressions. In Sunrise Divine Palace, Hua Zhongdie's expression darkened. She spread her wings and was about to head to the north. Don't be impulsive. It's too late even if you go now. The rising sun dragon god spoke, stopping the former. He gazed towards the north as the sun god flames around him rose. The Wu god made his move. Above the 9 heavens, the wind howled and thunder rumbled. Endless divine essence gathered, stirring up the divine suns of the 9 heavens. The power of light filled every corner of the god world. The divine sun shone brightly, and the power of light rose rapidly. In the battle in the north, around the divine palace, the light was dazzling, suppressing the darkness. The empress's body trembled. The moment the darkness faded away, a look of agony flashed across her eyes. Kill me. As a ruler, she was unwilling to be manipulated by the darkness. The moment her consciousness returned, she could only beg for death. In front of her, Ning Chen waved his hands, and 2 swords appeared at the same time. Without any hesitation, his figure flashed past. The celestial sword cut through the void like lightning. A fountain of blood gushed out from the empress's chest, dyeing the imperial palace red. One sword to subdue the enemy, and the other to take her life. The sword that slashed the empress's throat was extremely sharp. The strongest sword in the world was unparalleled in its sharpness. At the moment of her death, the darkness around the empress rose again and blocked the fairy-slaying blade. She counterattacked with a palm, and her power was shocking. Wherever the palm passed, the light was extinguished. With a muffled groan, Ning Chen slid several feet. He stabbed his swords into the ground and blocked the empress's retreat. Sword reversal. Ning Chen's sword will rose again. He turned his swords, and 2 beams of sword light pierced through the air. The sword light entered the darkness without any ripples. The powerful power of darkness suppressed the light once again. Boom! At this moment, thousands of lightning bolts fell from the sky and blasted the empress below. The empress raised her hand, and black air filled the air and dissolved the lightning bolts. The next moment, a black spear appeared in the empress's hand, and she threw it toward Nanjiang. The earth-shattering spear cut through the world of light and swept toward Nanjiang. In Sunrise Divine Palace, the dark spear swept over and killed the gods. Wu Shen, Yueshen, and Butterfly in Hua saw this and joined forces to block the darkness. Wu Shun was the first to be hit by the collision of darkness and light. His mouth was red, and he was forced to retreat several feet. Yueshin and Butterfly in Hua were also affected and were severely injured. The power of one move had severely injured the three of them, and they could no longer help the battle in the north. In Shuiyun Imperial Palace, Knowing Destiny was injured again and again. Facing the unknown power of darkness, it was difficult for him to find a way to break it. The Empress's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer. Ningchen switched from offense to defense. He crossed his swords and blocked one attack after another. Ningchen was injured, but he recovered quickly. With the help of his indestructible body, he circled the battle and looked for flaws in the darkness. He tried again and again, but failed again and again. When the battle was in a stalemate, heaven and earth shook again. Large cracks spread, swallowing the sky and the earth. In the battle, the Empress's figure flashed, and her powerful palm imprinted on Knowing Destiny's chest. Blood splashed all over the sky. Ningchen was forced to retreat several steps. Suddenly, the ground behind him cracked open and spread thousands of miles away. Ningchen couldn't stand still and fell into the bottomless abyss. Dark energy lingered around him, suppressing his power. Above the abyss, the Empress looked down at Knowing Destiny with her cold eyes. No emotion could be seen on her face. After a short while, the Empress's figure dissipated into black air and disappeared. In the human world, above the starry sky, a large crack suddenly opened. A white-haired figure in plain clothes fell and hit a large planet. The beautiful planet didn't seem to be affected by the catastrophe of heaven and earth. Above a small stream, Ningchen fell from the sky and crashed into the stream. Not far away, a child who was herding cows was startled. He was nervous for a long time and walked over carefully. "It's a person. Mom, someone fell into the water." Seeing the man in the stream, the child immediately shouted into the distance. Soon, a delicate woman came from below the stream. Seeing the young man in the stream, she hurried to drag him out of the stream. "Mom, is he still alive?" the child asked worriedly. "Yes," the woman said softly. "Let's put him on the back of the cow and take him back to see a doctor." The child nodded immediately and stepped forward to help. At this time, black air loomed in Ning Chen's chest and kept devouring his vitality. The woman and the child dragged him onto the back of the cow. Then, the cow dragged Knowing Destiny and walked toward a small town in the distance. Chapter 1525. In the small city, it was rainy in early autumn. In the city, cooking fires were lit and everyone started cooking. In front of a simple house, a white-haired young man in plain clothes stood quietly. He looked at the human world with a complicated look in his eyes. He was back. In the battle with the darkness, Ning Chen's cultivation was temporarily suppressed, but he gradually recovered these days. The great calamity of the human world didn't seem to have spread to this pure land. In the city, the people lived and worked in peace. Their lives were stable. "Young Master Ning, it's time to eat." After the woman finished cooking, she looked at the man standing quietly in front of the house and said. Ning Chen collected his thoughts and walked towards the house behind. In the house, the bowls and chopsticks were already placed. The food wasn't sumptuous, but it wasn't shabby either. The man in the woman's family died early, so the woman raised the child alone. Although it was hard work, she never complained about it. What others saw as hard work might not be true. Take Ning Chen for example. He had been running around for 1,000 years, but he never complained about it to anyone. The woman was hardworking. In her spare time, she did embroidery for the rich in the city. She could barely support the family. After Ning Chen was saved by the woman, he helped her do many things in the past few days. Carrying water, chopping firewood, these were things that ordinary men could do. Ning Chen could also do them, and he did them quite well. The woman didn't know that her servant used to be the ruler of the human world. If she knew, she probably wouldn't be talking and laughing like she was now. There was a lot of gossip in front of the widow's house, but the people in the small city were simple and honest. Very few people would stir up gossip. Moreover, the woman worked hard to raise the child alone. She had experienced so much that she didn't care about these things anymore. Ning Chen and the woman sat face to face, and the child sat on the side. The three of them started eating. The hot food wasn't sumptuous, but it tasted good. The woman was skillful and could always make the most ordinary things taste the best. The child ate very happily. He ate a big bowl of rice by himself, and there were a few rice grains around his mouth. The woman reached out and wiped the rice grains from the child's mouth. Her expression was so gentle. Perhaps happiness didn't lie in poverty or wealth, and it didn't lie in status. Sometimes, a simple life was the greatest happiness. Ningchen didn't talk much. Most of the time, he just watched quietly, watching the last beauty of the human world. For some unknown reason, during the days Ningchen was rescued, the dark energy in his body didn't break out. Ningchen had a chance to suppress it and recover his cultivation base. Ningchen was extremely fearful of this unfamiliar power. The battle with the darkness made him realize that he had to find a way to deal with the darkness as soon as possible. Otherwise, before the great calamity of heaven and earth descended, the human world and the heaven realm would have already been swallowed up by the darkness. Outside, under the gloomy and rainy weather, the sky quickly darkened. Night fell, and the people in the city began to rest. The women and children also went to bed early. Gradually, Ningchen was the only one left in the quiet town who was still awake. The door of the house creaked open. Ningchen walked out of the house and looked at the dark clouds in the sky. His weathered eyes flashed with deep worry. "I'll leave tomorrow." His cultivation had more or less recovered. Crack! At this moment, at the end of the Z-way segmentum, a huge crack appeared, crisscrossing and spreading in all directions. In the starry sky, many powerful cultivators of the mortal realm appeared and joined forces to stop the great tribulation of the world from spreading. In front of all the powerful cultivators of the mortal realm, Honorable Gu Yao, as the master of the Z-way segmentum, attacked with all his strength. He gathered the power of all the powerful cultivators to stop the great tribulation. After hundreds of years, Honorable Gu Yao had also stepped into the heavenly path realm. With his Tao reasoning cultivation base, he was outstanding among all the powerful cultivators of the mortal realm. Although the changes of heaven and earth brought endless disasters to the mortal realm, it also gave the cultivators of the mortal realm a chance to step into the heavenly path realm. For hundreds of years, many powerful cultivators of the mortal realm took this crucial step and became true grand cultivators. The huge commotion in the starry sky caused the entire segmentum to tremble. All the powerful cultivators of the mortal realm retreated again and again, unable to stop the great tribulation of the world. In the small town, the commotion at the end of the starry sky affected the quiet planet. The small town shook as if there was a moderate earthquake. Ningchen sensed it and frowned slightly. He raised his hand to stop the shaking ground. At the end of the Z-way segmentum, the powerful cultivators of the mortal realm joined forces to resist the great tribulation of the world. In just a few seconds, they showed signs of being unable to hold on. At the front, blood dripped from the corner of Honorable Gu Yao's mouth. In the face of the great tribulation of the world, even a Tao reasoning cultivator seemed so weak. At the critical moment, in the starry sky, beams of sword light swept over from the depths of the starry sky. The sword power shook the sky and resounded through the universe. This time, Honorable Gu Yao and the other powerful cultivators sensed it and were shocked. Above them, beams of sword light swept past and flew towards the spatial rift in front of them. After the shocking sword entered the spatial rift, the collapsing starry sky gradually stabilized. "It's the Lord of the Grand Supreme Realm." A powerful cultivator who had experienced a level 1 demon slayer battle reacted and said in shock. As soon as he said that, everyone was shocked. Wasn't the Lord of the Grand Supreme Realm the previous Lord of the Immortal Realm? Everyone looked at the Z-way segmentum Lord in front of them, waiting for an answer. It's indeed the Lord of the Grand Supreme Realm. Honorable Gu Yao also recognized the owner of the sword qi and said, "In the small town, the sword qi around Ningchen gradually converged and returned to normal. The great tribulation of the mortal realm was getting worse. It's an earthquake." The people of the small town ran out of their houses and said in a panic. In the small house, the woman also ran out with the child. When she saw the white-haired man outside, she hurried forward and said, "Is it an earthquake?" "It's fine now." Ningchen looked at the starry sky and said calmly, "Although the great tribulation of heaven and earth was unstoppable, at least he had to protect the last hope of the mortal realm." Ningchen turned around and looked at the woman and child behind him. Light flashed across his eyes. They were the last hope. In the sky, when the sky was about to brighten, figures appeared in the void. The heavenly venerables of the mortal realm appeared in the sky above the small town. Immortals! It's the immortals! In the small town, the people saw the people in the sky and were pleasantly surprised. In front of the small house, the busy woman also saw the group of immortals in the sky and was shocked. "Mom, it's the immortals!" The child pointed at the sky and said excitedly. In the void, the heavenly venerables of the mortal realm saw the white-haired young man below. At this moment, they finally confirmed his identity. "Greetings, Lord of the Grand Supreme Realm." The heavenly venerables bowed and said respectfully. It was a shocking scene. In the void, the immortals bowed together to a mortal below. In front of the small house, the woman saw the direction the immortals were bowing in. She was stunned at first, but then her expression changed. Could it be that they were bowing to? The woman looked at the white-haired young man in front of her, and the waves in her heart could no longer be suppressed. He was an immortal? Under the gazes of the heavenly venerables of the mortal realm, Ningchen looked back at the woman behind him and said calmly, "Thank you for taking care of me these days. I have to go." "Are you an immortal?" Seeing the calm expression of the young man in front of her, the woman suppressed the waves in her heart and asked. Ningchen shook his head gently and replied, "There are no more immortals in this world, but there will be soon." After saying that, Ningchen didn't stay any longer and walked toward the sky. In the void, the white-haired figure walked in front of the heavenly venerables. His white hair danced in the wind, and his aura of absolute nobility made it difficult for people to look at him. Ningchen looked at the sky, and a light flashed in his eyes. It was time to do something. In the ancient era, the Eastern Immortal Lord took action and caused the great calamity of the world. In this era, it was their turn. In the immortal world, Ningchen looked toward the east. Perhaps there were secrets in the immortal world that he wanted to know. It was time for the immortal realm to see the light of day again. Chapter 1526. In the Ziwei star zone, 100 celestial lords made a pilgrimage to the immortal land. After knowing destiny returned, all the celestial lords in the human world came to meet the former ruler of the human world. On the divine peak, Ningchen looked at the sovereigns of the mortal world and reminded them, "The catastrophe of heaven and earth has arrived. This time, I may not be able to protect all of you. In addition, a dark force has appeared in the mortal world and the heaven realm. Until now, I have not found a way to deal with it. If you encounter it, do not hesitate and run for your life immediately." Dark power? When Honorable Gu Yao heard this, a strange expression appeared on his face. Even the territorial lord is helpless against it. Where did this dark energy come from? I don't know yet. Ningchen said with a solemn expression, "It's precisely because we don't know its origins that we haven't been able to find a way to deal with it." When the various Empyreans heard this, their hearts all sank. Just the arrival of the great tribulation of heaven and earth was enough to make people despair. Now, there was an undefeatable dark force. Did God really want to destroy the human world? "What do you plan to do?" Honorable Gu Yao asked. "Go to the 4 great immortal realms to find out the truth." Ningchen looked to the east and said in a deep voice, "Back then, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial World acted to stop the great tribulation of heaven and earth and the dark force. Perhaps there are records of the great tribulation of heaven and earth and the dark force in the celestial world." "We'll go with the realm lord," Honorable Gu Yao said. "No need." Ningchen shook his head and said, "I can go by myself. You guys still need to guard the human world." Half a day later, Ningchen left the god's realm and headed east. In the inner realm, the central continent's demonic will see was filled with phoenix fire. Ningchen walked out and directly entered the forbidden land of the central continent. Just as Ning Chen entered the demonic wheel sea, a terrifying power appeared between heaven and earth, wanting to devour the life force of those who entered. After 1,000 years, Ning Chen once again entered the sea of demonic wheel. Even though his cultivation base was as different as heaven and earth, he could still feel that his body was constantly losing energy. Ning Chen released his divine sense and scanned the demonic wheel sea. His eyes narrowed slightly. It seemed like this demonic wheel sea had secrets that he did not know. He had already cultivated to the Tao extermination realm, but he was still unable to completely resist the nomological powers in the demonic wheel sea. The mortal realm's forbidden land had no end in sight. It was a world of its own. After Ning Chen entered, he walked for several hours but still did not reach the end. Inside the demonic wheel sea, time and space seemed to be separated from the other worlds. 1,000 years ago, Ning Chen's cultivation base was insufficient, so he couldn't sense the abnormalities here. Now that he was here again, he could feel how unusual this forbidden land was. After walking for an unknown amount of time, they finally reached the end of the demonic wheel ocean. The scenery of heaven and earth changed, becoming a scene of silence. More than half of the stone door had already been destroyed, leaving behind only ruins. However, the immortal might on the stone door could still be clearly felt. Blood could be vaguely seen on the collapsed stone door. After the erosion of time, the spiritual energy on the door had long since dissipated. Behind the stone door, the devastated Eastern deity world was almost completely destroyed. Tens of thousands of years had passed since the Antiquity Age. Even the sturdy rocks had been weathered by the passage of time. Ning Chen walked into the Eastern deity realm. Looking at the broken world in front of him, his expression grew more and more serious. During the great tribulation of heaven and earth, the immortal world was destroyed and the immortals perished. Everything happened so suddenly. However, the Lord of the Eastern immortal world managed to withstand the great tribulation of heaven and earth. Even the darkness was afraid of the Lord of the Eastern immortal world. Could it be that the Lord of the Eastern celestial realm really knew the origin of darkness? Also, why would the world have such a great tribulation? All kinds of questions flashed through Ning Chen's mind. Facing the great tribulation that was about to befall the three realms, he did his best to find a way to stop it. In the immortal world, the former prosperity could be faintly seen. Celestial mountains sat there, but they had lost all their spiritual energy. At the end of the celestial mountains, there was a palace. Ning Chen looked at the palace in the distance. His figure dissipated, turning into a fire phoenix and flying away. In front of the palace, phoenix flames filled the air. Ning Chen walked out and looked at the palace in front of him. He reached out and pushed open the palace door. With a rumble, the palace door opened, and Ning Chen walked in. Inside the palace, it was still dead silent. There was no sign of life. Ning Chen walked in the palace. He released his divine sense and walked straight into the depths of the palace. When he came to the palace again, nothing had changed much. The only difference was that after 1,000 years, the palace's aura of time had become thicker. Compared to the palace's history, 1,000 years was nothing. However, to Ning Chen, 1,000 years was already so long. Inside the palace, it was abnormally dark. If it weren't for the remaining luminous pearls that were still emitting some light, the palace would have been almost invisible. Silence in eternal silence. In the main hall, the sound of footsteps could be heard, one sound after another. Ning Chen followed his memory and walked to a palace where the green coffins were displayed. Suddenly, his expression froze. In the palace, a green coffin floated quietly in the void. There were 3 green coffins in the beginning, but now, only one was left. Ning Chen looked at the green coffin in the void. He took a step and leaped up. In the void, there was only one green coffin. It was half open, and it contained all the methods of the starry sky. It made people not dare to look at it directly. Ning Chen looked at the green coffin in front of him, and his expression became more and more serious. There were 3 green coffins. He took one away, so there should be 2 left. If he remembered correctly, there was a blood-stained white robe in the missing green coffin. Who was it that took away the 3rd green coffin? Was it just for the blood-stained clothes? Who was the owner of the shirt? The master of the Eastern immortal world? All kinds of questions lingered in his mind. After a long time, Ningchen retracted his gaze and looked at the green coffin in front of him. Back then, he and Miss Jiangli hid in this coffin and saved their lives from the fairy-slaying sword. However, the flow of time in this coffin was much faster than the outside world. A moment was eternal, and a night was 100 years. Ningchen waved his hand and shook off the lid of the green coffin. Looking at the methods of the starry sky in the green coffin, a strange light flashed in his eyes. In the green coffin, the nebula rolled like an independent small world. It evolved slowly and clearly from the Archean era to the Ancient era. 1,000 years had passed in the outside world, but in the green coffin, an unknown number of years had passed. When Ningchen looked at the green coffin, it was the beginning of the Ancient era. Across the Archean era and the Ancient era, the 4 immortal worlds developed to the peak. In the era when the gods and demons withered, people only had eyes for immortals. In the green coffin, one could vaguely see an immortal going through the tribulation and ascending. Suddenly, Ningchen's expression froze, and his face darkened. He saw that around the immortal going through the tribulation, there was a faint black aura. It was so weak that it was almost undetectable. After the tribulation, the immortal ascended, leaving only a trace of black aura in the mortal world. The power of darkness. Having fought with darkness before, Ningchen was very familiar with the power of darkness. Looking at the ancient scene reflected in the green coffin, his expression became more and more serious. This trip was right. The power of darkness came from the immortal who ascended. After thinking for a moment, Ningchen stepped forward and entered the starry sky world in the green coffin. This was not enough. He needed to know more about the source of the power of darkness and how to deal with it. Chapter 1527. In the Immortal Palace, inside the green coffin, Ningchen stepped into the starry world to check the source of the dark power. In the starry world, time had passed and it was the beginning of ancient times. When the cultivators of the mortal world ascended and became immortals, the dark aura remained in the mortal world. The chaos had clarity and turbidity. The clear rose and became the sky, while the turbidity sank and became the earth. There was good and evil in the human heart. Good thoughts rose and evil thoughts remained in the mortal world. For thousands of years, evil thoughts accumulated in the mortal world and eventually turned into darkness that covered the sky. In the starry world, Ningchen watched the passage of time and his life force quickly dissipated. In the world in the coffin, 100 years passed in an instant. In order to understand the source of the darkness, Ningchen stood in the starry world for 30,000 years. After 30,000 years, Ningchen's life force dissipated by half. Even with the body of an immortal demon, it was difficult to hold on. In the long years, countless powerhouses ascended to the immortal world. The dark power accumulated in the mortal world increased and almost condensed into a substance. Gradually, after an unknown period of time, the dark power in the mortal world began to develop intelligence. Although it was very weak, it was clearly felt. The dark power that had just developed intelligence was still very weak. It was like a child holding a sharp divine sword. The power it could exert was actually very limited. However, no one noticed the budding dark power. Even the immortals of the immortal world didn't care about it. Everyone had good and evil thoughts. This was the most common thing. No one would think too much about it. The onlooker sees the game more clearly. Coming from the future, Ningchen had personally fought with the dark power. His sensitivity to the dark power was better than ordinary people. Ningchen stood in the starry world and watched the passage of time. The dark power in the mortal world also grew rapidly. After the cultivators of the mortal world ascended, more and more dark power was left. However, just as the dark power was gradually growing, in the Eastern immortal world, the master of the immortal world finally noticed the changes in the mortal world. In the Eastern immortal world, the immortal master made a move. The immortal slaying sword appeared and an earth-shattering sword light slashed from the immortal world into the mortal world. The immortal light spread and dispersed the dark power in the world. After the sword, The dark power in the mortal world disappeared and the world regained its clarity. In the starry sky, Ningchen saw this scene and was even more puzzled. The dark power had been cut off by the master of the eastern immortal world. Then where did the dark power come from? All kinds of doubts flashed through Ningchen's mind, but he couldn't figure it out. At this moment, the scene in the starry sky world changed again. Somewhere in the mortal world, a woman gave birth to a child. When the child was 10 years old, he was accepted into an immortal sect because of his innate talent and intelligence. Within 100 years, the child of the past had succeeded in his cultivation and became the first person in the world to ascend to the heavens after only 100 years of cultivation. In the North Immortal world, a cultivator who ascended in 100 years had appeared in the mortal world. The entire immortal world was shocked. The Lord of the North Celestial Realm personally came out and accepted the ascended genius cultivator as a disciple. Under the envious gazes of the immortals, the young man in green entered the immortal palace with the Lord of the North Immortal Realm. 10,000 years passed again. The Lord of the North Celestial World was in seclusion. As the Celestial Master's disciple, the young man in green was in charge of all the affairs of the celestial world. In the starry sky, Ningchen looked at the mirror image below with an extremely solemn expression. He always felt that there was something wrong with this young man, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. Time passed little by little. The Lord of the North Celestial Realm had been in seclusion for 20,000 years. Although the celestial realm looked calm on the surface, it was turbulent in the dark. The green-robed young man began to show his ambition. With the help of the power in his hands, he began to arrange his own forces, eliminate dissidents, and control the North Celestial Realm step by step. After 20,000 years, the cultivation of the green-robed young man was also getting higher and higher. He was almost no weaker than a monarch. In the starry sky, Ningchen watched the growth of the green-robed young man and gradually saw the abnormality. This young man was too human-like. Humans have the 7 emotions and 6 desires: joy, anger, worry, longing, sorrow, fear, shock, good or evil. However, on the path of cultivation, the 7 emotions and 6 desires will gradually become indifferent. Regardless of good or evil thoughts, they will become less distinct. However, this young man was extremely greedy, angry, and obsessed. His face was covered with many hypocritical masks. The greed of the human heart was undoubtedly evident. Compared to the transcendence that immortals should have, this young man was too human-like. Could it be? Ningchen looked at the mirror image of the celestial realm below, and a terrible guess arose in his heart. However, those dark forces had indeed been destroyed by the Lord of the East Celestial Realm. He also didn't feel any dark forces from this young man. Ningchen couldn't figure out the doubts in his heart, so he could only continue to watch. However, after 70,000 years in the green coffin world, his vitality had dissipated by more than half, and he gradually found it difficult to support himself. Just as Ningchen entered the celestial realm to find a way to deal with the calamity of the world and the dark forces, in the human world, in the starry sky, large cracks appeared and the world shook. The barriers of time and space that had existed for countless years in the human world and the heaven realm gradually collapsed under the calamity of the world. The gods and demons of the calamity finally arrived in the human world. Under the apocalypse, the 3 realms were in panic. The negative emotions in the hearts of the gods and demons were extremely magnified, causing chaos in the human world. In the purple myrtle holy realm, the celestial lords in the human world all tried to stop the gods and demons from causing chaos. However, the power gap between the human world and the heaven realm was too big. The gods and demons of the 6 levels of heaven came to the human world one after another. In 100 years, the human world was in chaos. At the critical moment, Hua Zhongdia, Luo Xingchen, and the others returned and immediately killed more than 100 powerhouses of the 6 levels of heaven, frightening the gods and demons of the heaven. The powerhouses of the human world established their power, and the gods and demons of the heaven temporarily restrained themselves and didn't blatantly cause chaos in the human world. In the purple myrtle holy realm, Hua Zhongdia and the others gathered. Venerable Gu Yao told them the whereabouts of Knowing Ming, and they were finally relieved. For 100 years, they had been looking for Knowing Ming's whereabouts. They were relieved. Knowing Ming has been gone for 100 years? Luo Xingchen asked. Yes. Venerable Gu Yao nodded and said, the State Lord went to find a way to deal with the tribulation of heaven and earth. I wonder how he is now. I will go find him. Hua Zhongye turned around and was about to leave. Miss Dai, don't worry. Qin Ning said softly, he has been to the East Deity realm once. There won't be any danger. We just need to wait here. Hua Zhongye frowned slightly, but didn't refute. She nodded and agreed. Immortal state. How can such a place be called immortal state? At this moment, the sky above the immortal state shook. Many powerful figures walked out of the sky. The gods and demons of the heaven realm had joined forces to suppress the immortal state. It was a shocking scene. The chi of the gods and demons surged in the sky and covered the sun. On the immortal peak, Hua Zhongye looked up at the gods and demons in the sky. Her cold eyes flashed with intense killing intent. The tribulation of heaven and earth had arrived, and these people still wanted to cause chaos in the human world. If so, she would kill them all. The flower burial appeared. The black blade light was dazzling. Demonic butterfly held the blade and rushed to the sky. Chapter 1528. In the purple myrtle divine realm, all the gods and demons were pressuring the realm. The demonic butterfly attacked, and demonic chi soared into the sky. Hua Zhongye, who had been suppressing her murderous nature, no longer hid the murderous intent in her heart. She attacked to kill the gods and demons. The flower burial rose, and Hua Zhongye displayed her shocking power. Her long sleeves danced, forming an inescapable net to block the gods and demons' escape route. In the net, black and white blade aura intertwined. The blade aura danced in the sleeves, and killing intent filled the sky. Blood sprayed in the inescapable net, and not a single drop fell outside. Below, in the shocked eyes of the immortal realm cultivators, all the gods and demons were slaughtered. Not a single one survived. After killing all the gods and demons, the demonic butterfly descended from the sky. The bloody smell made people shudder. On the floating islands of the immortal realm, the celestial venerables in the human world looked at the demonic shadow descending from the sky. There was such a powerful demon beside the Lord of the Grand Supreme Realm. The celestial venerables in the human world were silent. At this moment, no one dared to say anything. In the human world, demons were evil. However, now that the gods were in chaos, the demons were protecting the human world. Hua Zhongye and the others returned, and the human world was temporarily peaceful. In the green coffin world of the East Deity realm, Ning Chen had been in there for 70,000 years. He had observed from the early to the middle of the ancient times. After such a long time, most of his vitality had dissipated. In the North Deity realm, the young man in Sion had ascended to the immortal realm for 30,000 years. His strength increased day by day, and he had reached the monarch realm. The Lord of the North Deity realm had been in seclusion, trying to reach a higher level. The young man in Sion had controlled the North Deity realm for more than 20,000 years, and almost half of the deity realm was under his control. In the North Deity realm, all the rebels disappeared for unknown reasons. Even many immortal lords and immortals at the giant level had died. In the sky above the deity realm, Ning Chen looked at the situation in the North Deity realm, and his heart became heavier and heavier. If he guessed right, this young man in Sion had something to do with the darkness. During the tribulation of heaven and earth, the Lord of the North Deity realm suddenly went crazy. But what was the relationship between this young man in Sion and the darkness? Was the darkness himself? 30,000 years ago, the Lord of the deity realm had killed him. Ning Chen was puzzled and could only continue to watch. Finally, the first turmoil of the ancient times. The gods. Between heaven and earth, groups of demons appeared. Outside of the human world, the 10 primordial demon lords led the 100 races to conquer the human world. A great battle was about to break out. Among the 10 fiend lords in the primordial fiend realm, The strongest was already at the monarch realm. The weakest, first fiend Emperor Kuan, was a peerless expert who had stepped into the heavenly Tao realm. The 10 great demon monarchs were pressuring the borders, and the human world was in danger. At this critical moment, the 4 great immortal realms proposed an alliance to resist the demonic realm. In the northern celestial realm, the young man in cyan robes personally led the cultivators of the celestial realm to battle, wanting to establish his might once again. In the southern immortal world, the leader of the army was a woman in white. Her cultivation was extremely high and was not inferior to the young man in green. As for the strongest immortal realms, both the East and West immortal realms had sent their top experts to battle. A great battle broke out. The 10 great demon realms of the primal demon realm led the cultivators of the 100 races against the allied forces of the 4 great immortal realms. In the first battle, the allied forces of the 4 great immortal realms suffered a crushing defeat. The number 1 demon monarch of the primordial demon realm had an unparalleled cultivation base. He alone was able to fend off most of the experts of the 4 immortal realms. His battle prowess was astounding. The primordial demon realm army continued their victorious pursuit, conquering several star regions in one go. The situation was completely unfavorable. In the Western immortal realm, Western King's mother came out. She pulled out the dragon phoenix golden hairpin from her head, drawing out a heavenly river that extended into endless time and space. The heavenly river was vast and boundless, blocking the path of the primordial demon realm army. The path of the primordial demon realm army was temporarily blocked, giving the allied forces of the 4 great immortal realms a chance to catch their breath. And in these 100 years, the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm did not make a move. Ning Chen left the Northern Immortal Realm, watching the tragic battle of the ancient gods and demons along the way. He was extremely shocked. In these 100 years, the primordial demon realm army crossed the heavenly river and continued their conquest of the mortal realm. In these 100 years, the flames of war raged in the mortal realm, almost turning many star regions into ruins. After watching the battle for 100 years, Ning Chen left the battlefield and went to the Eastern Immortal Realm. He wanted to know why the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm had not made a move. In the sky above the Eastern Immortal Realm, Ning Chen's figure appeared. He searched through many immortal palaces, but could not find any trace of the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. There was no trace of the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm. Even in the Eastern Immortal Realm, no one knew where he was. After searching for a long time, Ning Chen left the Eastern Immortal Realm and searched everywhere in the mortal realm for the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm. In these 100 years, Ning Chen went to every corner of the mortal realm, but still did not find any trace of the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm. And in these 100 years, the 4 great immortal realms sent out their elites again and finally managed to stop the primordial demon realm army. The immortal and demon armies were in a stalemate. For a time, no one could end the war quickly. In these 100 years, Ning Chen left the mortal realm and went to the heavenly realm. There were 9 heavens in the heavens, and they were unreachable. The last 3 heavens were far away in the endless space and time. Ning Chen went through the 6 heavens first, from the God realm to the desireless heaven, and searched through all the heavens. However, there was still no trace of the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm. Finally, when Ning Chen had almost searched all 3 realms, he found the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm in front of a tomb buried in nothingness. The tomb was very ordinary, but it was a little unusual to be buried in nothingness. In front of the tomb, the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm stood there quietly for hundreds of years. There were a few words carved on the tombstone. Ning Chen tried his best to get closer to see, but after so many years, everything seemed so blurry, and it was difficult to see clearly. When Ning Chen got closer, the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm looked back in front of the tomb. His weathered eyes seemed to be able to see Ning Chen through reincarnation. Their eyes met for an eternity. Boom! At the end of the nothingness, a bolt of lightning cut through the sky, illuminating the dim world of nothingness. Their eyes reflected each other's figures. Reincarnation after reincarnation, thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. In the end, the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm left and returned to the mortal realm. Not long after the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm left, a beautiful little flower grew on the tomb in nothingness. It was white and flawless, without a speck of dust. Ning Chen's eyes revealed a thoughtful look. After a long time, he also left the nothingness. That pure white flower was so familiar. But after Ning Chen left, a wind came out of nowhere in the nothingness. The little white flower flew up, fluttered, and flew into the mortal realm. The cycle of reincarnation began in this life. That year, she looked at his back from the tomb. He was so tall and so far away that she could not reach him. The little white flower did not understand, but she was curious, so she tried her best to enter the mortal realm. However, the little white flower did not know that once she entered the cycle of reincarnation, she would lose the consciousness of her previous life. The Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm did not care about the little white flower's existence. Ning Chen cared about it, but he forgot about it. Fate was formed when they saw each other in front of the tomb. In the mortal realm, after the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm returned, he made a strong move and killed 9 of the 10 demon monarchs by himself. The primordial demon realm was defeated. The first demon emperor, the last of the 10 demon monarchs, was only affected by the battle. He was knocked down from the celestial venerable realm and could not recover. The army of the 100 clans retreated back to the primordial demon realm in defeat. The Queen Mother of the West made a move and sealed the exit of the primordial demon realm. Thus, the war ended. And after the war ended, the young man in green appeared on the battlefield. His divine essence spread out, and he began to devour the origin of the immortals and demons. Chapter 1529. In the green coffin world, Ning Chen dreamt of the ancient times, 70,000 years ago, searching for the truth of history. In the past 70,000 years, the immortal world and the human world had been experiencing a lot of major events. Especially in the last 10,000 years, the demon realm and the immortal world had a great war, and the flames of war had burned every corner of the human world. At the critical moment, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm returned from the void. He single-handedly killed the 9 great demon monarchs of the demonic realm, completely turning the tide of the battle. The devil realm was defeated. The West King Manor sealed the entrance between the primordial devil realm and the human world. The war ended completely. After the demon realm retreated, the human world and the immortal world were able to rest for a short while. No one noticed that in the North Immortal World, a strange power was growing rapidly. The young man's strength had increased by leaps and bounds after devouring the remaining essences of the immortals, demons, and the 9 demon monarchs. Vaguely, he was showing signs of surpassing the monarch realm. And the real master of the North Celestial Realm, the Lord of the North Celestial Realm, had been in seclusion for 20,000 years and had not come out. No one knew what accident had happened to him. In the green coffin world, after Ning Chen had stayed there for 70,000 years, his white hair began to turn gray. Obviously, his body could no longer support the clear passage of time in the green coffin world. Forced to the limit, the origin of the immortal god tree in Ning Chen's body automatically recovered and fed back to its master. The undying god tree that had lived for countless years had existed since the immemorial era. It was immortal and indestructible, almost indestructible. Its vitality was even vaster than the vast ocean. As the undying god tree counterattacked, Ning Chen's vitality rapidly recovered. After breaking through his limits, his physical strength seemed to be even stronger than before. Ning Chen's expression did not change at all. It was as if he had expected this. At the same time, in the Eastern Celestial Realm, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm stood quietly at the peak of the Celestial Realm. He looked at the starry sky. His eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. He was truly the #1 person in the world, invincible in the world. He created the immortal world, established the laws of a domain, and intimidated all gods and devils. Everyone in the mortal realm, heaven realm, and the 4 great immortal realms knew that the ruler of the Eastern Immortal Realm was invincible. He was truly invincible. Unfortunately, Even someone as strong as the ruler of the Eastern Immortal Realm couldn't do it. It was rumored that before the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm became an immortal, he had a wife in the mortal world. Unfortunately, when the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm was in danger, his wife risked her life to save him. In the end, she died. She didn't have the chance to see the Master of the Eastern Celestial Realm become an immortal and become invincible on the first day. When the Lord of the Eastern Celestial World became an immortal and became the #1 person in the 9 heavens and 10 earths, it was already tens of thousands of years later. After tens of thousands of years, everything changed. Her soul dissipated, there was no longer any hope of revival. The great Tao was merciless. Those who died were forever dead. Even the strongest person in the 9 heavens and 10 earths couldn't change this merciless rule. It was said that in order to resurrect his wife, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm did not hesitate to break through the cycle of reincarnation. He went up to the 9 heavens and down to the Yellow Springs. Even the Lord of the Underworld was defeated by him. The Underworld was broken through, but he still could not find the slightest chance of survival for his woman. At the peak of the Celestial World, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial World stood quietly for 10,000 years. His ancient eyes became more and more confused. After an unknown period of time, he gradually became determined. In the blink of an eye, the sky above the world of immortals surged, and the sky changed color. A moment later, a gigantic vortex appeared in the sky, churning continuously. It was like the cycle of reincarnation, bottomless. The Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm raised his hand and pulled out many broken mirror images from the cycle of reincarnation. Each mirror image was a bit of the time he spent with his wife when he became an immortal. Thousands of mirror images turned into starlight and flew into the mortal world, entering the belly of a woman. In the sky, Ning Chen was shocked when he saw this scene. What was the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm doing? In the mortal world, 10 months later, the woman gave birth to a daughter. After giving birth, the daughter stopped crying. 16 years later, the baby grew up. She grew up to be slender and elegant. However, she often looked at the sky in a daze. No one knew what she was thinking. Many people said that the girl was a fool. The girl did not refute. She continued to look at the sky every day, thinking about things. A year later, the woman died of illness. After the mourning period, the girl left home. No one knew where she went. 7 years later, a woman shocked the world. She disguised herself as a man and suppressed all the scholars in the world. She passed the imperial examination. In the throne room, the woman returned to the throne room of her daughter, shocking all the officials in the imperial court. The emperor was shocked and angry at the same time. He sentenced the woman to the crime of deceiving the emperor. The woman was sent to the imperial prison. 3 days later, she was executed in public. The woman was fearless. On the day of the execution, she smiled for the first time. This life was worth it. The executioner carried out the execution. When the butcher's knife slashed down, the woman's figure dissipated into starlight and disappeared from the mortal world. In the celestial realm, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm looked at the scene in the mortal world and did not interfere. After one life, the broken mirror images entered the cycle of reincarnation again. This time, they had more spirituality. Somewhere, the woman reincarnated. The second life was even shorter than the first. The woman practiced martial arts from a young age. In just 20 years, she cultivated the martial arts of the mortal world to the realm of Taoism. It was a shocking talent. When the woman was 25 years old, she turned to Taoism and ended her short life. In the third life, the woman reincarnated into the royal family. She enjoyed endless glory and wealth from a young age. However, the woman still risked her life. At the age of 20, she died. The fourth life. The fifth life. In the starry sky of the celestial realm, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm and knowing destiny watched the woman reincarnate one life after another. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, as if there was no end. Life after life, the woman did not live past the age of 30. She died in the best years of her life. However, after the woman disappeared in each life, The spirituality in the thousands of mirror images became stronger and stronger. Vaguely, there was a trace of vitality. In the underworld, the Lord of the Underworld looked at the mortal world from the throne. Seeing the woman reincarnate one life after another, shock flashed in her beautiful eyes. She sent the lifeless images into the cycle of reincarnation. After life, they actually gave birth to life. How was this possible? At the peak of the celestial realm, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm was surrounded by celestial light. Her cultivation, which was already invincible, rose again. After countless lives, the woman reincarnated again. In the void, Ningchen looked back and suddenly trembled. At the peak of the celestial realm, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm disappeared. At the same time, a delicate young man appeared in the mortal world. He was ignorant of the world and was born to know. In the underworld, the Yama king who was supposed to be on the throne also disappeared and entered the mortal world. The lords of the celestial realm and the underworld entered the cycle of reincarnation together. They wanted to see the essence of reincarnation. In the void, Ningchen looked at the three people who had entered the cycle of reincarnation. His expression became more and more serious. Did reincarnation really exist in the world? What exactly was reincarnation? In the mortal world, the young man and the young woman finally met. At the same time, they met a woman who liked to wear red. The young man did not like the woman in red. The two of them did not get along and quarreled when they met. The young woman was very gentle and considerate. She kept saying good things about the woman in red. In the crowd not far away, a beautiful girl looked at the young man with admiration in her eyes. In the girl's hand was a small white flower that had just been picked. It was pure and flawless, like a snow lotus in full bloom in the mortal world. Chapter 1530. In the green coffin world, the lords of the celestial world and the underworld all entered the cycle of reincarnation and met in the mortal world. It was as if there was an invisible person controlling fate. Those who were destined to meet would eventually meet. No one could change that. The young man was valiant and accomplished at a young age. He entered the imperial court and was conferred the title of Marquis step by step. The young man's path became faster and faster, but the more he walked, the lonelier he became. The woman who reincarnated again and again did not live past 30 years old in this life. Her stunning life disappeared at the most beautiful time. The young man was very sad. Although he was in a high position, he could not save the life of the woman he loved. At this time, the foreign tribes from the west invaded and the country was in danger. The young man was in danger and had to put down the sadness in his heart. He personally put on his armor and went to the battlefield. The battlefield was cruel and life and death were at stake. Every time he was in danger, the beautiful figure in red would appear in front of him and resolve the crisis for him. Finally, the foreign tribes were defeated and the young man returned to the imperial court. He looked very old and experienced. In the imperial city, among the people who were still welcoming him, a pair of pure eyes looked at the young man. It was just like before. Nothing had changed. The cycle of reincarnation had never changed. Back then, the little white flower on the tomb looked up at the back of the Lord of the Eastern Celestial World. Now, the woman was still looking up at the young man. Her exquisite heart was purer than the snow lotus. The young man returned to the imperial court. Under the gaze of the people in the imperial city, a shocking change happened. In the crowd, a woman in white leaped up, and like a fairy flying from the heavens, her sword pierced directly into the youth's chest. No one had expected such a shocking scene. The young man was the same. Up close, the young man looked at the woman in white with a veil covering her face. His shocked eyes gradually calmed down. A smile and relief appeared on the young man's face. This life was worth it. The young man fell off the horse. The woman in white did not escape. She killed herself and fell beside the young man. The woman in white was the princess of the foreign tribes. The foreign tribes were defeated and suffered heavy casualties. The woman in white followed the young man all the way to the imperial city. When the young man's guard was at its lowest, she assassinated him. The woman in white also knew that she could not live, so she chose to kill herself. A life was short. The woman in white sword cut off the cycle of reincarnation, but it also opened a new fate. In the void, Ningchen looked at the scene below. The shock in his heart was hard to suppress. The young woman saved the young man. After waiting for life after life, the young woman finally did not only have to look up at the young man's back. Under the young woman's accompaniment, the young man began to cultivate again. Although it was difficult, the young man did not give up. He cultivated in seclusion again and again. The young woman did not have the talent to cultivate, so she accompanied the young man. Sometimes she waited for nearly 10 years. However, the lives of mortals were so short. How many decades could they have? In the end, when the young man was in seclusion, the young woman's lifespan was exhausted. She reached the end of her life. The young woman looked at the stone room where the young man was in seclusion. She wanted to hold on for a few more days to see him one last time. However, the young woman was really too tired. Her tired eyes gradually closed. She had finished her short life. In this life, there were no regrets. It was worth it. 3 days later, the young man came out of seclusion. Thunder roared from the 9 heavens and descended to the human world. When the young man came out of seclusion, he saw the young woman sleeping soundly. His body trembled violently. Life after life, the 9 lives were about to end. The youth's appearance changed, and he walked towards the horizon. The lightning in the sky could not hurt him. Looking back at the 9 lives, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm's eyes became more and more vicissitudes. At this moment, a sword light came from afar. The woman in white kept repeating the same thing over and over again. Grand Supreme, you can't kill me. The Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm raised his hand and caught the sword light with 2 fingers. With a clang, he broke the divine weapon in the Grand Supreme's hand. The woman in white was hit by the backlash. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. She looked at the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm in front of her. Without saying a word, she repaired the broken sword with the blood-herder sword. The broken sword was rebuilt. It was dazzling. The woman in white flashed past. In a flash, she was in front of the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm. The Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm raised his hand. Celestial core power surged. Just as he was about to counter the Grand Supreme in front of him, suddenly, above the 9 heavens, the world changed. In the void, a terrifying crack appeared and spread for millions of miles. The change of the world had just begun. In the sky of the Northern Celestial Realm, under the huge crack, the young man in green looked at the crack in the sky. The smile on his face became brighter. The sky cracked, and a disaster appeared. The Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm's expression changed. He took a step forward and swept toward the sky. In the middle of the big crack, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm stopped. He condensed celestial core power in his hands and used his supreme cultivation to forcefully pull the time and space that was constantly collapsing. The Lord of the Celestial Realm blocked the change of the sky. Unexpectedly, in the void, a huge vortex appeared and swallowed the Lord of the Celestial Realm. Unexpectedly, 9 was the limit. The 10th life that should not have existed had arrived. Chapter 1531. In the human world, the heavens and earth changed. In the Qing royal family, a prince was born. When he was born, thunder roared and rain poured down. In his 10th life, the master immortal reincarnated and became a prince of the Qing kingdom. The Qing dynasty was a small country. To the north was the Wu dynasty and to the west was the Jurchen. The 2 dynasties were both big countries. Because they restricted each other, the Qing dynasty was barely able to protect itself. However, in the past 100 years, the talents of the Wu dynasty in the north had withered and the country had declined greatly. The balance was broken and the Jurchen dominated. The situation of the Qing dynasty became dangerous. Qing Sheng, the 10th reincarnation of the Master Immortal, was named by the Qing Emperor himself. It meant that he could bring life to the Qing dynasty. After he was born, he was given the title of Crown Prince. 16 years later, Qing Sheng gradually grew up. In his memory, the dynasty was always at war. Every time his father returned from battle, he would be exhausted. However, even though the Qing emperor was brave and good at war, the land of the Qing dynasty was still decreasing day by day. It was difficult to stop the iron cavalry of the Jurchen. Qing Sheng had been practicing martial arts since he was young. He did it every day so that he could one day go to battle and protect the country. His coming-of-age ceremony was about to arrive. The Qing emperor purposely returned from the front lines. When he returned, the banners swayed because the Qing dynasty had won a rare battle. It was as if the heavens had eyes. The Qing dynasty had temporarily repelled the invasion of the Jurchen. Qing Sheng's coming-of-age ceremony was very lively. It could be said that the entire country was celebrating. However, just as Qing Sheng's coming-of-age ceremony ended, news came from the front lines. The Jurchen had returned and 100,000 soldiers had arrived. In the palace of the Qing dynasty, the Qing emperor, who had finally rested, had to put on his armor again and personally lead the troops. Before leaving, the Qing emperor looked at his grown son and said calmly, "Qing Sheng, you have grown up. From now on, you must learn to protect your home and family." Qing Sheng nodded and remembered his father's words. The Qing emperor left and once again personally led the troops into battle. The Qing emperor left for a whole year and did not return. The empress arranged a marriage for Qing Sheng. It was the daughter of a prince with a different surname. Her name was Ji Hui. She liked to wear red and was very beautiful. Ji Hui saw Qing Sheng and fell in love at first sight. She did not hesitate to agree to the marriage. As for Qing Sheng, after knowing his mother's arrangements, he did not say anything. He knew that as the crown prince of the Qing kingdom, there were some things he could not choose for himself. Qing Sheng and Ji Hui's wedding came quickly because the empress hoped that their wedding would bring good fortune to the Qing kingdom. It was a joyous day for the two of them. The palace was filled with red as the two newlyweds knelt down to pay their respects. Just as the ceremony was about to be completed, a blood-soaked general rushed into the palace on horseback. In front of the main hall, the general rushed into the hall regardless of the people blocking his way. Seeing the empress in the hall, he cried and knelt down, "Your Majesty, His Majesty has died in battle." As soon as he finished speaking, the lively hall immediately quieted down. Qing Sheng, who was bowing, shuddered violently. It was as if a lifetime had passed. "Your Highness, there is one last gift," Ji Hui said softly under the red veil. Qing Sheng returned to his senses and looked at the quiet hall. He looked at his mother sitting on the main seat and pulled off the red silk on his body. He walked to the side and picked up his sword before walking out of the hall. "General Yun, protect mother well." As he said this, Qing Sheng got on the general's warhorse and rushed out of the palace. 3 days later, the crown prince led reinforcements to the front lines. The Qing soldiers who had already given up all hope saw the Qing kingdom's flag. Their morale was immediately boosted, and they exploded with a shocking desire to live. The Nuzan army on the front lines was fiercely blocked by the Qing soldiers and reinforcements. They were forced to retreat again and again. Qing Sheng led the army in pursuit, wanting to wipe out the Nuzan frontline army in one go. Just as the Nuzan army on the front lines was completely defeated, the cavalry behind them rumbled. The Nuzan reinforcements had arrived. The 100,000 soldiers were like a flood of molten iron, pressing down on the border. At the front of the army, a woman in white rode over. As she neared the battlefield, she slapped the back of the horse with both hands and leaped up. The famous sword Qi Feng, shocking the world, pierced toward the crown prince. The grudge that had lasted for 10 lifetimes exploded once again. The eldest princess of the Nuzan kingdom and the crown prince of the Qing kingdom clashed for the first time on the battlefield. The shocking sword shocked everyone. It was like a flying immortal, making it unavoidable. In front of the Qing army, Qing Sheng waved his sword and forced away the dozen Nuzan soldiers in front of him. Looking at the sword flying toward him, his expression turned serious. He stepped forward and did not dodge, taking the sword head-on. The two swords clashed. Qing Sheng's right arm went numb, and he took half a step back. In the air, the woman in white used the momentum to change her sword. Her attacks were continuous, not leaving any gaps. Qing Sheng sidestepped the sword and raised his hand toward the woman's throat. The woman in white twisted her body, and the two of them brushed past each other. Both of their faces were cold and filled with murderous intent. 3 steps away, the woman in white stopped. She turned her head and charged out, her killing moves continuous. Among the thousands of soldiers, the two of them fought. The martial arts of the mortal world were even more dangerous at this moment. The men of the Qing dynasty were brave and good at fighting. The Qing emperor was like this, and now Qing Shing was like this. To protect the Qing dynasty behind him, even though he was surrounded by thousands of soldiers, there was no fear on Qing Shing's face. Behind him, under the attacks of the Nuzan army, there were fewer and fewer Qing soldiers left alive. Surrounded by thousands of soldiers, Qing Shing's injuries became more and more serious. His armor was covered in blood. "Kill!" Qing Shing shouted furiously. He held his sword with both hands and forced the woman in front of him back. 10 steps away, the woman in white stopped once more. She looked at the crown prince in front of her. Her beautiful eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Release the arrows." Behind her, a Nuzan general opened her mouth and said coldly. As soon as the order was given, thousands of arrows flew out. They were densely packed, as if the god of death was descending from the sky. On the battlefield, Qing Shing, who was covered in blood, looked at the arrows in the sky. There was no fear in his eyes. What was there to fear about death? Unfortunately, he could no longer protect the dynasty behind him. "Mother, I am unfilial." Thousands of arrows pierced through his body, bringing out a bright red waterfall. It was so shocking. At this moment, a woman in a red wedding dress rushed over. When she saw the shocking scene in the Nuzan army, her pupils constricted. "Ah!" The woman in red roared toward the sky in pain. 2 drops of blood fell from her beautiful eyes. 10 lives of reincarnation. She had waited 10 lives, but in the end, it was all for naught. Boom! In the sky, thunder roared and rain poured down. When the crown prince of the Qing dynasty was born, it was accompanied by heavy rain. When he left, the heavens sent him off with heavy rain. On the battlefield, Qing Shing, who had been pierced by thousands of arrows, fell. Looking back at the world for the last time, he was filled with regret. Farewell. The memories of the 10 lives quickly flowed back. In the world, thousands of soldiers and horses turned into a dream. In the sky, a terrifying crack appeared. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. A calamity befell the world, and everyone cried. In the moment of crisis, an unparalleled figure returned in the sky. His white clothes were spotless. The divine master attacked. He held up the sky with one hand and stopped the calamity. In the distant North Celestial world, the master of the North Celestial world broke out of seclusion. His hair was disheveled, and his eyes were blood red. Not far away, the young man in green curled his lips into a cold smile. It made people shudder. Chapter 1532. The crown prince of the Qing dynasty was pierced by thousands of swords and died. His soul returned to the celestial world. Time stood still. At the end of reincarnation, the catastrophe of heaven and earth arrived. In the North Celestial world, the Lord of the North Celestial world broke out of seclusion. His hair was dyed red and he looked crazy. In the depths of the North Celestial world, a celestial sword flew out. The Lord of the North Celestial world held the sword and roared to the sky. With one sword, he cut off the pillar of heaven that had protected the North Celestial world for countless years. The sword that could destroy heaven and earth directly cut off the hope of all living beings. The pillar of heaven collapsed, and heaven and earth suddenly tilted. The end of the world had arrived. Everywhere in the world, floods flooded, and fire spewed out. The most terrifying catastrophe of the end of the world, and death spread to every corner of heaven and earth. In the catastrophe of the world, the 6 heavens of the heaven realm were also affected. The heavens shook, and the catastrophe continued. The fear of the world shocked all the gods and demons in the sky. In the 6 heavens, the gods and demons joined forces to resist the catastrophe. However, even the gods and demons in the sky could not stop the catastrophe of the end of the world. In the North Celestial world, The young man in green looked at the scene in the world, and the smile on his face became brighter. Just as all living beings in the three realms were in despair, in the void, a peerless figure in white walked out of thin air. After 10,000 years, the Lord of the East celestial world reappeared in the world. He held up the sky with one hand and supported the tilted heaven and earth. The number one person in the 9 heavens and 10 lands, the truly invincible Lord of heaven and earth, supported the hope of the world alone. In the world, billions of people looked at the sky, and their faces were filled with excitement. The celestial had appeared. In the void, the Lord of the East celestial world refined thousands of mountains and rivers to mend the sky. On the earth, mountains and rivers flew to the sky. Under the forging of the celestial fire, they gradually changed shape and turned into stones to mend the sky. In the cracks in the sky, heavy rain poured down, drowning one city after another. The catastrophe destroyed the world, and the Lord of heaven mended the sky. The refined stones flew to the sky and repaired the cracks in the sky. Day and night, in the sky, the cracks in the sky were repaired, and the heavy rain that fell on the world gradually stopped. The cracks in the sky were repaired, and all living beings breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, heaven and earth shook again, and more terrifying cracks appeared, and torrents poured down. A collapsed corner of the world was no longer in balance. Even if the sky was mended, it would split open again. In the void, the Lord of the Eastern celestial world sensed the source of the catastrophe and looked at the Northern celestial world. At the end of the Northern celestial world, the heavenly pillar collapsed, and the heaven and earth that supported it collapsed. The scene was horrifying. Boom! In the doomsday scene, the North celestial realm was destroyed. Countless immortals and immortal lords were killed. It was shocking. It was an unbelievable scene. Everyone in the North celestial realm, including the celestial lord, was buried together with the North celestial realm. When the North celestial realm was destroyed, the young man in the teal robe did not escape. He allowed the celestial realm to fall into the human world. There was no fear on his face, only endless madness. It's over, it's all over. Under the shocked gazes of all living beings, the North celestial realm fell, crashing into many planets of life in the human world. In the collapsing celestial realm, black airflow filled the air. The young man in green had fallen. His powerful consciousness returned to heaven and earth, once again gathering the dark power scattered all over the world. Meanwhile, in the other 3 directions of the mortal realm, regardless of whether it was the immortal realm or the immortal realm, experts all came out to help the Eastern immortal master mend the heavens. Under the collapsing world, countless immortals and fiend gods perished in the heavenly tribulation, unable to withstand this apocalyptic tribulation. Even the powerful celestial lord of the southern celestial realm and the queen mother of the west were stained red after being hit by the heavenly tribulation again and again. At the center of the great tribulation, the celestial lord of the eastern celestial realm resisted the violent impact of the great tribulation alone. His tall and straight body did not yield for a moment. Heaven and earth were heartless and treated all living beings like straw dogs. The celestial lord of the eastern celestial realm resisted the heavens with his human strength, wanting to reverse this apocalyptic tribulation. At the critical stage of mending the heavens, darkness descended from the 9 heavens, covering the faint light of hope in the human world. In the green coffin world, the ancient Great Tribulation evolved again. Ningchen looked at the ancient scene, and his expression became more and more shocked. I see. The scene in his memory reappeared. The Eastern Celestial Realm defeated the dark power and exhausted his celestial core power and blood chi to refine the chaotic sky-mending pillar, leaving the last hope for the human world. After repairing the sky-mending pillar, the celestial lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm was exhausted. His celestial body gradually dissipated, and his soul returned to heaven and earth. The dark power that had left reappeared. It wanted to seize the opportunity when the celestial lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm died and the human world's vitality was greatly damaged. Unexpectedly, the celestial lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm, who should have died, reappeared. He used the celestial slaying sword formation to heavily injure the Dark Power and force the conspirators of the Dark Power to retreat. The celestial lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm, who sacrificed everything for the human world, even his last trace of soul dissipated. In the distance, the eyes of the Yama king of the underworld, who had recovered from the cycle of reincarnation, instantly turned blood red when he saw this scene. Ning Chen witnessed the cause and effect of the ancient Great Tribulation with his own eyes, and his gaze became more and more solemn. Under the Great Tribulation, even the celestial lords of the various celestial realms had fallen. It was clear how terrifying the Great Tribulation was. If this tribulation could not be overcome, no one in the entire three realms would survive. However, in order to overcome this tribulation, there were three things that had to be done as soon as possible: mending the heavens, repairing the sky-mending pillar, and killing the Dark Power. The first thing was easy to deal with, but the latter two were difficult to deal with. The chaos item needed to repair the sky-mending pillar was nowhere to be found. As for killing the Dark Power, it was even more difficult. Darkness and light were originally equal. Now that the Great Tribulation had arrived, the Dark Power would completely suppress the light. In the 90,000 years in the Green Coffin world, Ning Chen had seen and understood many things. The source of the Dark Power was the darkness in the hearts of all living beings. The darkness in the hearts of mortals was weak and could not affect the world. However, when accumulated, it was enough to rival the great cultivators who had ascended to the celestial realm. Especially under the apocalypse, the darkness in the hearts of mortals would expand hundreds and thousands of times, and the Dark Power would become stronger and stronger. However, under the apocalypse, how could the hearts of mortals produce light? Ning Chen was silent and fell into deep thought. After a long time, Ning Chen came back to his senses and stepped out of the Green Coffin world. The strength of the Dark Power came from the expansion of the darkness in the hearts of all living beings. Now, the most important thing was to let the human world see the hope of light again. The celestial realm. Ning Chen flew out of the celestial palace and soared into the sky. High in the sky, Ning Chen looked down at the broken Eastern Celestial Realm. With a deep roar, 8 dragons appeared around him. Dragon Chi roared and flew to all parts of the Eastern Celestial Realm. The 8 dragons surrounded and pushed the celestial realm toward the starry sky. It was a shocking scene. The 8 dragons pushed the celestial realm toward the starry sky. On the celestial realm, Ning Chen stood quietly, protecting the 8 dragons and moving the celestial realm together. In the Ziwei galaxy, in the immortal realm, Hua Zhongdia and the others felt a huge fluctuation in the distance and rushed out of the immortal realm. In front of the immortal realm, everyone saw the shocking scene in front of them and was shocked. It was the knowing destiny state. What was he doing? In front of everyone, Hua Zhongdia flew to the celestial realm. What are you doing? Hua Zhongdia asked softly. Rebuilding the celestial realm. Ning Chen said calmly. Hearing this, Hua Zhongdia narrowed her eyes and didn't ask any more questions. She nodded and said, "Okay, I'll help you." As soon as she finished speaking, her sleeves spread out and fixed on the celestial realm, pushing the celestial realm forward. Chapter 1533. Ziwei Galaxy. Above the starry sky, the eastern celestial world floated over. On the celestial world, a white-haired figure in plain clothes stood quietly, moving mountains and seas by himself. Seeing this, everyone stepped forward. "I want to rebuild the celestial domain. Please help me." Ning Chen looked at the experts in front of him and said. Luo Xingchen and Mu Qianshang were shocked when they heard this, but after a moment, they came back to their senses and nodded in agreement. No one joked before serious matters. The great calamity of heaven and earth had arrived, and time was precious. The western celestial world is in the Red Phoenix Galaxy. House Master, Qianshang, Brother Xingchen, I'll leave it to you. Ning Chen said seriously. We will not disappoint you. The Dawn Moon House Master nodded. The 4 of them then moved and rushed towards the Red Phoenix Galaxy. The whereabouts of the southern celestial world is still unknown, but I've seen the reflection of ancient times in the Immortal Palace. The southern celestial world should have been destroyed in the White Emperor Galaxy. Female Supreme, Sister Qing Ning, and Prince Qi, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip. Ning Chen looked at the four women and said seriously. Qing Ning nodded and said, we will find the whereabouts of the southern celestial world as soon as possible. Qing Ning and the other three left. Ning Chen looked at the people in front of him and said seriously, I'm going to the Wanxiang Galaxy, I'll leave this place to you. Don't worry, Realm Lord. With us here, nothing will happen for the time being. Honorable Gu Yao said seriously. Thank you. Ning Chen replied, his gaze sweeping across the crowd, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. Where are Zi and Luf? Why don't I see them? When we left Desireless Heaven, we encountered a dark aura. Zi and Lufei stayed behind to cover our retreat and have not returned. Yi Xuanmiao sighed. When Ning Chen heard this, his body trembled, but he did not make a move. He clenched his fists and suppressed the emotions in his heart. At this time, he could not lose his mind. I'll go with you. Behind him, Hua Zhongdia walked forward and said in a calm tone that did not allow rejection. Ning Chen nodded and did not refuse. The two left and rushed towards the north of the starry sky. With the arrival of the Great Tribulation, the powerhouses of the human world each contributed their own strength to fight for a glimmer of hope for themselves and for all living beings. In the Wanxiang star area, demonic qi was spreading everywhere. Ning Chen and Hua Zhongye walked out. Looking at the half-destroyed star area in front of them, their hearts felt heavy. This great calamity of heaven and earth came too fiercely. They didn't even have time to stop it before half of the human world was destroyed. The heavenly Tao was merciless. Once it began to purge the three realms, even fiend gods would find it hard to escape. What exactly did you see in Immortal Palace? Hua Zhongye spoke with a heavy voice. The reflection of the great tribulation of heaven and earth in the ancient times. Ning Chen replied softly. What about that dark force? Do you know where it is? Butterfly in the flower asked again. The human heart. Ning Chen said with a heavy tone, the negative emotions in people's hearts are the source of the dark power. In this post-apocalyptic world, the negative emotions in people's hearts will expand countless times, and the dark power will become unstoppable. When Hua Zhongdia heard this, her eyes flashed. So that was the case. In this post-apocalyptic world, how could they stop the darkness in people's hearts? Let's go. Let's find the relic of the North Immortal Realm first. Ning Chen said as he strode forward. The human world needed hope. Only when there was hope in people's hearts could they suppress the violence and darkness in their hearts. However, what made him afraid was that the North Fairy world was once dominated by the cyan-robed young man. It was very likely that there would be unexpected dangers. Back then, the Lord of the East Fairy world killed the Dark Will with a sword. The darkness between heaven and earth dissipated. Unexpectedly, the Dark Will entered the reincarnation cycle and returned with the help of human beings. Reincarnation was an incomprehensible existence. The Lord of the East Fairy world used reincarnation to resurrect his wife with the remaining memory fragments between heaven and earth. The Dark will resurrect itself in the same way. In the depths of the Wanxiang star area, many collapsed stars floated in the starry sky. It was a mess everywhere. In a desolate land that no one had ever set foot in, the North Fairy world fell and destroyed countless stars, causing half of the star area to become a forbidden area. Ning Chen and Hua Zhongye entered. Looking at the collapsed stars in front of them, they were shocked. Be careful, Ning Chen said and reminded them. Hua Zhongye nodded. Demonic qi spread out from her body, and she was on guard against any danger that might appear at any time. The starry sky was vast. Even gods and demons had never set foot in some places. The Wanxiang star area was close to the end of the starry sky. There were too many unknown places. After entering the unknown place, the two slowed down significantly. They were on full alert and didn't dare to be careless. Boom! The starry sky shook. Huge cracks appeared one after another. After the great calamity of heaven and earth descended on the human world, the unknown place became more unstable. Terrifying cracks kept appearing and swallowing the broken stars one after another. The two avoided the cracks and tried to stay as far away from these cracks as possible. Although they had cultivated to the Tao extinguishing realm, they couldn't guarantee that they could walk out alive after being swallowed by these cracks. After walking for half a day, a huge crack blocked their way. The crack in the starry sky seemed to have no end. Ning Chen and Hua Zhongyue stopped. They looked at the crack in front of them with serious expressions. What should we do? Take a detour? Hua Zhongyue asked. I'm afraid there's no way. Ning Chen said seriously. Go through it. Hua Zhongyue nodded without any hesitation. Even if it was a mountain of swords and a sea of fire, she would accompany him. The two moved and disappeared into the crack in the sky. In the crack, there was an endless void. There was nothing, not even time and space. Outside the crack in the sky, time passed quickly. Inside, everything seemed to be still. Ning Chen and Hua Zhongyue moved forward quickly. They wanted to reach the end of the crack as soon as possible. Days passed. In the Red Phoenix Galaxy, the Dawn Moonhouse Master and Luo Xingchen worked together to push the Western Immortal World to the Z-Wei Galaxy. At the same time, in the White Emperor Galaxy, Qing Ning and the Female Supreme found the ruins of the Southern Immortal World. They worked together to push it to the Z-Wei Galaxy. In the center of the starry sky, in the Z-Wei Galaxy, the Eastern, Western, and Southern Immortal Worlds merged into one. The rumbling shook the heavens and the earth. The Immortal Worlds merged and their territory multiplied. Where's Ji Ming? Not back yet? Mu Qianshang asked. Not yet. Ji Ming and Lady Dai went to look for the ruins of the Northern Immortal World. There's no news yet. Yi Xuanmiao said. Qing Ning and the others heard this and their eyes flashed with worry. With Ning Chen and Hua Zhongyue's cultivation, they should have returned earlier than them. Could it be that they met with some danger? In the Wanxiang Galaxy, in the crack in the starry sky, two figures flashed through it. It took a long time for them to reach the other side. At the same time, in the depths of the crack, a huge black cocoon floated up and down. In the black cocoon, the sound of heartbeats could be heard. The dark cocoon grew stronger day by day. It gradually healed the body that was severely injured. With the arrival of the Great Tribulation, the darkness in the human heart increased tenfold. The day when the darkness broke out of the cocoon was also coming. Chapter 1534. In the Wanxiang starfield, in a large crack that cut across the starry sky, knowing destiny and demonic butterfly crossed the void, trying to reach the other side of the starry sky. In order to reopen the mystic realm and explore the secrets of the North Fairy world, Ning Chen did not hesitate to risk his life and travel through endless time and space to find the whereabouts of the North Fairy world. The butterfly in the flower was with him, and they would never leave each other. The two of them moved forward quickly, and in the endless void, there was nothing, as if there was eternal silence. Boom! In the outside world, heaven and earth shook, and large cracks continued to spread to the deepest part of the starry sky. In the void world, the two of them felt the changes in the outside world. They looked at each other and moved faster and faster. They had to leave this place as soon as possible, or they might be trapped in this void world forever. In the outside world, time flew, and in the blink of an eye, it was more than 3 months. In the void world, the two of them finally saw a glimmer of light, and the other side was right in front of them. However, at this moment, the void world shook again. In front of the other side, a black aura lingered, endless, and gradually covered the light on the other side. Seeing this, Ning Chen was shocked, and he did not dare to hesitate for a moment. He shouted and called out the celestial slashing sword. Senior sister, let's go. Ning Chen controlled his qi and condensed his yuan. He had entered the god realm, and his attacking power was 10 times stronger than before. In a short moment, Ning Chen burst out with the monarch-level power. He slashed open the darkness that hadn't fully condensed yet, and used his sword to send the butterfly out of the void. The butterfly in the flower was shocked, and before it could recover, it was sent out. Don't come back if I don't get out. You must bring the North Fairy world back to the Z-Wei starfield. Ning Chen looked at the butterfly in the flower that flew to the other side and shouted anxiously. As soon as he finished speaking, the darkness that was cut open quickly solidified, and there was no trace of light. After a short burst, Ning Chen's aura returned to its original state. Around him, the dark aura spread, and he gradually turned into a human figure. The woman's appearance was beautiful, and he had never seen it before, but she was so powerful that it was frightening. Ning Chen looked at the woman in front of him, and his right hand clenched, and the fairy-slaying sword appeared. In front of him, a huge death scythe condensed in the woman's hands, and black aura lingered around it, as if it could swallow someone at any time. In the next moment, the woman moved, and in a flash, she was in front of Ning Chen. The black aura was vast and mighty, and the woman waved the death scythe in her hand with shocking murderous intent. Ning Chen was shocked. He waved his sword to block the attack. With a loud bang, he collided with the death god's scythe. Ning Chen was pushed back 100 feet. He didn't even have time to take a breath before a black shadow condensed in front of him. The woman appeared again, and the death god's scythe slashed down. Ning Chen's eyes darkened. Instead of retreating, he advanced and raised his hand to grab the handle of the scythe. At such close proximity, the woman clenched her fist and punched out. It was earth-shattering. With a loud rumble, the corners of Ning Chen's mouth turned red. However, he still refused to retreat. Phoenix flames gathered on his palm as he forcefully counterattacked. With a counterattack of her palm, Phoenix flames burned the sky and boiled the sea. The woman bathed in Phoenix divine flames, and the black aura around her burned even more fiercely, forcefully suppressing the Phoenix flames. The Phoenix divine flames that had always been invincible were now being suppressed by the power of darkness, and were unable to gain the slightest advantage. The great tribulation of heaven and earth had caused the light to dissipate and darkness to flourish. The power of darkness had also subsequently suppressed the power of light. Even the most holy and most young divine flames of the Phoenix were unable to resist the corrosion of the darkness. As the death god's scythe slashed down, a horrifying wound appeared on Ning Chen's chest. Blood gushed out, and the wound was so deep that one could see bone. 10 steps away, Ning Chen staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. He had only exchanged a few blows and was already severely injured. The darkness had completely suppressed the light. Even someone as strong as a Tao-extinguishing realm-knowing destiny cultivator could not resist the power of darkness. With one successful move, the woman's figure flashed again. In a flash, she raised her hand and grabbed Ning Chen's throat. The power of darkness spread and engulfed the knowing destiny cultivator's body in an instant. On the other side of the starry sky, Butterfly in the Flower felt Ning Chen's aura disappear from the void world, and her body trembled violently. How could this be? At the same time, in the Ziwei galaxy, Qing Ning, Mu Qianshang, and the others also felt the disappearance of the knowing destiny cultivator's aura. What had happened? Not far away, a man clutched her chest in pain, and her face was pale. The connection between their hearts allowed a man to clearly feel the rapid loss of Ning Chen's flame of life. Qing Ning came back to her senses and looked at a man who was not far away. At this moment, a man, who was supposed to be there, had already left. On the other side of the starry sky in the Wanxiang galaxy, Butterfly in the Flower stood for a long time. Finally, she calmed her trembling heart and turned to leave. She had to complete the task he had given her. Butterfly in the Flower left and went into the depths of the starry sky to search for traces of the North Celestial Realm. In the void world, a strange place appeared. It was as cold as hell, and it made people shudder. In the black hell, a woman appeared and walked step by step toward the main hall. In the main hall, figures stood quietly, surrounded by black air. Everyone's strength was extremely powerful, surpassing that of a celestial venerable in the human world. "Greetings, Your Majesty." After the woman returned, the figures bowed respectfully. The monarch of death in the dark world was also one of the 4 heavenly kings of the dark world, death god Mingyuan. Mingyuan waved his hand and sent Ning Chen's body out. He said lightly, "Send him to the nether prison. When the darkness opens, sacrifice him to our master." A nether general accepted the order and left the main hall with knowing destiny cultivator's body. The nether prison was the place where the dark world suppressed the light. It was ruled by death god Ming Yuan. Even a monarch-level expert could not escape. Ning Chen was sent to the nether prison. Not far away, two familiar figures were also sleeping in the nether prison. They were Lufei and Xiazi, who had disappeared for a long time. Knowing destiny was captured, and his life was in danger, the calamity of heaven and earth continued to spread, and the human world could collapse at any time. The real doomsday made people unable to see a trace of hope. The power of darkness made people despair. Facing the death god, one of the four heavenly kings of the dark world, Ning Chen was defeated so quickly. At this moment, in the last three heavens, far away from the three realms, a holy and destructive figure looked down at the human world. Black feathers fluttered around his body, and his endless demonic power surpassed all other powers. The human world is doomsday, Nether King said lightly. As soon as he finished speaking, a divine sun appeared in the sky. In the divine sun, an illusory figure loomed, powerful and gentle. The human world will not be destroyed. Not in the ancient times, and not in this era, a calm voice said from the divine sun. Did God intervene again? Nether King said coldly. The human world needs hope, the calm voice replied from the divine sun. Nether King raised his head and looked at the divine sun in the sky. He said lightly, God, your intervention can only mean that you have no confidence in the human world. In the sky, God sighed and did not say anything. In the human world, in the nether prison, Ning Chen's body trembled slightly. In his dantian, the heavenly book of creation flipped quickly, and the silver light shone brightly. The 10 volumes of the heavenly book of creation gradually expelled the dark power in Ning Chen's body. After a long time, Ning Chen opened his eyes and stood up in the darkness. Chapter 1535. In the first prison of darkness, nether prison, death god Ming Yuan, one of the 4 heavenly kings of darkness, had been waiting for the recovery of the Lord of Darkness for more than 100,000 years. With the arrival of the great tribulation of heaven and earth, the dark energy in the human world rose sharply. The recovery speed of the Lord of Darkness was getting faster and faster, and it was time for him to come out of seclusion. In the deepest part of the darkness, the Lord of Darkness, who had been severely injured by the fairy-slaying sword array, turned into a black cocoon. Day after day, he devoured the dark energy in the human world to recover himself. The light was suppressed, and the age of darkness was coming. No one could stop the great tribulation of the 3 realms. The aura of the Lord of Darkness had gradually surpassed that of a monarch. In this era where monarchs did not appear, who could stop the darkness? In the first prison of Nether Prison, the heavenly book of creation summoned fortune, dispelling the dark energy in Ning Chen's body. Ning Chen woke up and stood up from the darkness. Not far away, in a cage filled with darkness, Xiazi and Luofei's 5 senses were sealed by the darkness, and they had not woken up. Ning Chen stepped forward and looked at the 2 people trapped in the darkness with a solemn expression. The next moment, the heavenly book appeared, and a bright silver light gradually dispelled the dark energy in the nether prison. Ning Chen raised his hand and grabbed the 2 people. He did not dare to stay and was about to leave. Save me! At this time, hoarse voices came from the black airflow. It was as if the throat had been eroded by time, and even speaking was difficult. Ning Chen heard it and stopped. He looked through the darkness and looked at the source of the voice. In the depths of the prison of darkness, many powerful figures were trapped. After countless years, they had been tortured to the point that they did not look human anymore. However, even so, Ning Chen could still feel the terrible aura from these people. Save me, I will help you get out of here. Among the powerful gods and demons, a thin old man said in a deep voice. Save me. I will give you the position of the Lord of a realm. Not far away, a woman also said. Although her appearance was much older, one could still vaguely see the peerless elegance of the past. Numerous extremely formidable existences were true supreme experts in the mortal realm or even the entire 3 dimensions. However, all of them were restrained here by the darkness and suffered day and night. The people in the darkness were too old. God knew how many years they had been trapped in the darkness. Their bodies were all withered, and their energy was almost depleted. Ningchen saw a kind of terror from these people. If he didn't wake up, after countless years, would he also end up like these people and be devoured by the darkness? He can't save you. At this moment, black air currents madly gathered above Nether Prison, and Death God Ming Yuan appeared. The peerless beauty held a huge Death God scythe in her hand. As one of the 4 heavenly kings of darkness, her strength was so strong that it made people despair. Below, when the crowd saw the newcomer, fear appeared on their faces, and they began to tremble. The Grim Reaper raised his hand, and an incomparably powerful palm strike directly crushed all the fiend gods. The supreme experts of the 3 realms, whose names had shaken the 3 realms, didn't even have a chance to resist in front of the Grim Reaper. Ning Chen's mind shook. He didn't dare to linger any longer. Phoenix flames swirled around him as he spread his phoenix wings and flew out of Nether Prison. Even a moth wants to fly out of the darkness and into the light? In the air, Ming Yuan's sickle of the god of death slashed through the air. A huge black crack appeared between heaven and earth, blocking the path ahead. Dark aura gushed out from the black spatial crack. It was like an abyss that devoured everything. With his path blocked, Ningchen immediately changed his direction and flew to the other side. Ming Yuan, do you have to waste so much energy on a mere phoenix? At this moment, a black air current surged in the void ahead. A terrifying existence whose aura was not inferior to the Grim Reaper's walked out and blocked Ningchen's path. The god of plagues appeared, grabbed the phoenix wings behind Ningchen, and tore them apart. The flaming feathers that filled the sky disappeared in the darkness. Ningchen let out a muffled groan. He stomped his foot and retreated 1,000 feet. One of the phoenix wings was torn off. Ningchen's back was dripping with blood, dyeing his white robe red. God of plagues, you've crossed the line. In the air, Ming Yuan spoke, a cold glint flashing across his beautiful face. Your progress is too slow. Master is impatient, so I'm here to help you, the god of plagues said lightly. Ming Yuan's expression was unmoved when he heard that. He said coldly, I'm the Lord of Nether Prison. No one can interfere. God of plagues, there's no need to trouble you. The god of plagues sneered. He looked at the phoenix with broken wings in front of him and said lightly, this phoenix has a disgusting aura. Ming Yuan, catch him. I think Master will like him. After saying that, the god of plagues raised his hand. The dark aura spread out, corroding everything in its path. Ningchen stepped forward and retreated again. Unexpectedly in the air, Ming Yuan moved and appeared behind Ningchen. The scythe of the god of death slashed across, mercilessly threatening his life. Without any warning, the scythe of the god of death slashed through the air. Time seemed to stop at this moment. Boom! The god of death was closing in. At this critical moment, Ningchen turned around and blocked the murderous intent with his sword. The rumbling sound echoed throughout Nether Prison. At the same time, the power of the god of plagues spread and touched Ningchen's left arm. It was a shocking scene. Ningchen's left arm began to corrode from his fingers. In the blink of an eye, half of his arm had been swallowed. Ningchen was shocked. He came back to his senses in a short moment. Without any hesitation, he cut off his left arm. Blood splattered, dyeing the black hell red. Ningchen's demonic aura surged, and the eternal demon body was revived, quickly healing his injury. The broken body was reborn, and the eternal demon body reappeared. In the air, the 2 dark heavenly kings didn't look surprised at all. In their eyes, such an ability was nothing to be surprised about. Seeing the young man reborn, Ming Yuan moved again and appeared in front of Ningchen at an incredible speed. There were too many unknowns in the power of darkness. Facing 2 of the 4 dark heavenly kings at the same time, Ningchen was at a disadvantage. In Nether Prison, the 2 powerful dark heavenly kings joined forces. Ningchen, who was already at a disadvantage, was in more danger. The god of death and the god of plagues moved like lightning. The scythe of the god of death and the power of the god of plagues intertwined, forcing Ningchen to retreat step by step. Blood dyed his clothes red. Even though he had fought with the Dark World several times, it was still difficult for Ning Chen to gain the upper hand in the face of the experts of the Dark World. The restraint of attributes had suppressed Ning Chen's power to the greatest extent. Today, when the light had withered, the darkness was almost unstoppable. With a slap, the power of darkness penetrated his body. Ning Chen's body flew hundreds of feet away, his chest dyed red. Before his body fell, the scythe of the god of death slashed down from the air. The powerful force was earth-shattering. Boom! With a violent tremor, Ning Chen's legs sank into the ground. His right arm was bleeding, and his injury was worsened. The god of plagues stepped forward and looked at the young man in front of him. He smiled and said, "How can a phoenix whose wings are torn to pieces soar in the 9 heavens?" As soon as he finished speaking, the god of plagues raised his hand and pierced it into the former's chest. The most desperate scene. The strongest knowing destiny expert of the 3 realms was defeated by the Dark Heavenly King. The light was gone, and the end of the world had arrived. Chapter 1536. In the infernal purgatory, 2 of the 4 Dark Heavenly Kings appeared and joined forces to severely injure Ning Ming. His wings were torn, his arms were broken, and his chest was pierced. Even with his indestructible body, Ning Chen gradually found it difficult to hold on. Blood stained his plain clothes. The power of darkness was so despairing. In the apocalyptic world where the power of light was suppressed, even Ning Chen could not exert his original strength. Close at hand, the god of plagues looked at the white-haired young man in front of him and sneered. "The strongest in the human world is nothing more than this." The immortal sword was propped on the ground, and blood kept dripping down the blade. Ning Chen's consciousness was dizzy, but he stubbornly refused to fall. He couldn't lose. He couldn't lose. He knew that if he fell here, everything would be over. He and his 2 friends would die here. He couldn't lose. "I can't lose." His blood-stained face was filled with stubbornness. Ning Chen's immortal demon vitality surged crazily like raging waves. It forcibly opened up a patch of light in the dark world. "Oh, do you still have consciousness?" The power of light flourished, and the god of plagues was forced to take 2 steps back. Looking at the change in the white-haired young man's aura, his eyes flashed with surprise. In the darkness, a glazed flame burned. Phoenix fire, demon fire, and immortal fire intertwined. It was so bright that it illuminated the endless darkness. In the glazed flame, the white-haired figure in plain clothes stood still. His body was withstanding the shockingly high temperature, and his skin began to crack and curl. In order to get out of this predicament, Ning Chen forcibly used the power that he had not mastered, and forcibly merged the 3 original powers. The unknown and terrifying power shook violently. The Phoenix divine flame, the demon fire, and the immortal spirit fire sublimated to the extreme, turning into the unprecedented chaotic flame. The glazed chaotic flame burned everything, including darkness and light, including Ning Ming's own body. Bearing the chaotic flame with his flesh and blood, the extreme pain made Ning Chen's dizzy consciousness sober up. Not far away, in the darkness, Ming Yuan saw this and stepped forward, instantly arriving in front of Ning Ming. The death scythe filled with dark power split the void, once again threatening to kill. The death scythe demanded his life, and Ning Ming was unyielding. He raised his hand to block the dark weapon. The glazed chaotic flame, and this time, finally blocked the aura of darkness. With a loud rumble, the 2 forces clashed against each other. The shockwaves shook and corroded each other. Ning Chen and Ming Yuan's arms were bleeding at the same time. Since the start of the war, the god of death had been injured for the first time. Shock flashed through his eyes and was replaced by an even more intense coldness. Ming Yuan took a step forward, and the black air around him roared. Behind him, a huge Grim Reaper phantom appeared. It was 30,000 feet tall and held a huge black scythe. The Grim Reaper's mysterious phenomenon shocked the world. As the scythe chopped down, it directly split apart the primal chaos flame that filled the sky. The Grim Reaper, who had displayed his true strength, multiplied the pressure he exuded. The primal chaos flame was impacted, causing it to shake violently. At the same time, not far away, the god of plagues who was watching the battle also made his move. Above his head, the shadow of a gigantic vase appeared. Within the vase, black air flowed as if it was alive. In the next moment, the black air current with life spread out in the battlefield, crazily devouring light and life. The flame of primal chaos was struck by a powerful force of darkness, and its glass-like color was dyed with a touch of darkness. As the aura of death closed in once more, Ning Chen's eyes flashed with madness. With a shout, he entered the realm of the gods, instantly activating a tenfold attack. The flame of primal chaos burst out in all directions like raging waves. The terrifying temperature dispelled the darkness and illuminated the nether prison. In the center of the flame of primal chaos, Ning Chen's body began to burn as if he was in a heavenly fire. His body began to burn from the outside to the inside. Fight with your life? You're not qualified. The god of plagues snorted coldly. He activated the dark vase and suppressed it, wanting to devour the strongest person in the human world. The dark vase contained the power of darkness that could devour everything. It violently attacked the flame of primal chaos that was crazily sweeping out. The two terrifying forces collided. In the center of the battlefield, blood dripped from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth. Before it dripped, it was burned by the terrifying temperature. This was the most tragic battle. In an era without light, any power of light was suppressed. Ning Chen couldn't use his combat power. Facing two of the four heavenly kings of darkness, it was extremely difficult for him to fight. In this era, the realm of immortals had collapsed, and the gods had disappeared. There was no firm faith in the human world. After the great calamity, people only felt fear, and the darkness in their hearts increased greatly. Under such circumstances, the power of darkness was extremely strong, and the power of light was completely suppressed. Ning Chen disregarded his own safety and wanted to reopen the realm of immortals. His goal was to let the human world see hope again. Only when hope appeared in people's hearts would the power of light not be suppressed by the darkness. However, before the realm of immortals was rebuilt, Ning Chen had already met the strongest four heavenly kings of the dark world. There was no room for negotiation. Ning Chen was clear about his situation. Therefore, no matter how difficult the battle was, he didn't give up for a moment. Fight with his life, he was still fighting with his life. He was fighting with the heavens, fighting with his fate. In the darkness, the glazed flame of primal chaos violently attacked the suppression of the dark vase. Ning Chen formed a seal with both hands, and two immortal swords appeared out of thin air. The two swords filled the sky, and a murderous aura rose. The endless flame of primal chaos quickly gathered and merged into the three immortal swords. Heaven and earth chime, life and death defying fate. In the flame of primal chaos, two blazing meteors broke through the sky. The immortal swords turned into two streams of light, drawing two dazzling long tails in the darkness, trying to cut a way out. The god of death and the god of plagues, the two heavenly kings of darkness, looked serious. They released their power of darkness and blocked the immortal swords. Boom! There was a shocking explosion. The power of darkness and light clashed violently. Blood splattered everywhere, and the three people in the battle vomited blood. A flaw appeared in the dark killing trap. In an instant, the flame of primal chaos turned into a pair of wings. Ning Chen took a step and swept past the two heavenly kings, rushing out of the dark world. In the nether prison, Ming Yuan's face sank. He raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked back at the phoenix in the distance. He clenched his right hand, and a black spear appeared. The god of death used his killing move again. The black spear was thrown out, and the darkness passed through time and space. It instantly caught up with the phoenix tens of thousands of miles away. The black spear penetrated the flame of primal chaos and pierced through the phoenix's body. There was a muffled groan, and blood splattered in the void. The phoenix didn't stop for a moment and quickly flew away. Cunning phoenix, he still managed to escape. The god of plagues looked at the phoenix at the end of the darkness and said lightly. In front, Ming Yuan gradually restrained his aura and said calmly, He won't be so lucky next time. In the dark world, tens of thousands of miles away, the phoenix scattered. Knowing destiny walked out, and the phoenix wings on his back disappeared. He fell directly from the sky. At this moment, the demonic butterfly flew from afar and caught knowing destiny. Let's go back. Hua Zhongye looked at the severely injured white-haired man in front of her with tears in her eyes and smiled. It was enough that he was alive. Chapter 1537. A broken continent floated in the starry sky. On it, knowing Ming was unconscious and covered in blood. In front of him, the demonic butterfly was wrapped in a long ribbon. She was pulling the North Deity realm forward. In the boundless starry sky, the demonic butterfly rushed toward the Ziwei galaxy. After a long time, thunder rumbled in the starry sky and a giant crack appeared in the sky. Dark energy spread out from the crack. Many figures covered in dark energy walked out. Their powerful energy was shocking. The situation was critical. Seeing this, demonic chi surged around Butterfly in the flower. Amidst the crisscrossing water sleeves, Flower Burial appeared. More than 10 dark overlords came from the sky and killed the demonic butterfly together. Hua Zhongye attacked. Wherever the blade light passed, demonic chi filled the sky. The shocking blade power cut open the starry sky and blocked the darkness. The rumbling sound echoed in the starry sky. The broadsword god showed his power again. He didn't bow to the darkness. The figures of the 12 dark race experts flickered in and out of existence within the saber light, but they were not injured at all. Darkness and light countered each other. The dark overlords were still strong when facing the broadsword god. They attacked together and blocked all the escape routes of the demonic butterfly. The flower burial blade slashed through the bodies of the dark overlords. It cut open the dark energy, but it couldn't hurt the 12 dark overlords. The immeasurable dark energy was different from the origin of gods and demons. It was also different from the true chi of the human world. The unknown energy brought great pressure to Hua Zhongye. After a few exchanges, the demonic butterfly was dyed red. Blood seeped out of her blue dress. It was very eye-catching. The invincible broadsword god was at a disadvantage when facing the darkness. It wasn't because he was weak or his level was lower. It was because the overlords of the light world were restrained by the darkness. On the continent of the North Deity realm, sword chi surged around the unconscious Ningchen. Even though he was unconscious, his fighting spirit didn't decrease. The crisscrossing sword will turned into a sword that could cut the sky. In the starry sky, beams of sword chi flashed and slashed toward the dark overlords. The 12 dark race experts sensed this and evaded wave after wave of sharp sword energy. The moment the dark overlords were dodged, Hua Zhongye took the opportunity to release her demonic essence and infused it into the flower burial tear. It was earth-shattering. The dark overlord closest to her couldn't dodge. He raised his hand and blocked the flower burial blade. Boom! Terrifying vibrations erupted as the flower burial blade sliced open the dark race expert's body, bringing out a waterfall of crimson. The dark race expert was injured, and the other 11 were surrounded by dark aura, helping the former recover. The 12 dark race experts who cultivated the same life shared the same life. They were bound together for good or ill. In just a few breaths' time, the 12 dark race experts had recovered to their peak condition. It seemed like they were unharmed. Seeing this, Butterfly in the flower's expression sank completely. This is troublesome. She knew too much about the power of darkness and had no idea how to deal with these monsters. On the continent of the North Celestial Realm, the glazed chaotic flame rose again around the unconscious knowing destiny, helping the demonic butterfly to resist the dark cultivator. Rest well. Leave them to me. Knowing that Ning Chen's body could not bear the burden, Hua Zhongye looked back at the figure in the North Celestial Realm and said in a deep voice. After saying that, Butterfly in the flower's blood-red devil flame burned fiercely. Using her blood chi as a guide, she crazily burned her devil chi. Although she did not know how to deal with these monsters, she believed that as long as she was strong enough, she could kill them. As the devil chi burned, The blood-red devil flame was glaring. Butterfly in the flower displayed the shocking cultivation of a path annihilation expert, wanting to kill the darkness with absolute power. In the battle, the 12 dark race experts felt the shocking pressure from the demonic butterfly in front of them. They looked at each other, and their figures flashed and merged one after another. In the blink of an eye, the dark aura burst out all over the sky. The 12 dark race experts merged into one, and a black halberd appeared in their hands with shocking power. In an instant, the dark race expert moved, and the black halberd struck down with a force that could split mountains and seas. As the darkness attacked, Butterfly in the flower did not dodge. She faced the black halberd with the flower burial tear. A horrible collision sound was heard. The devil chi and the dark aura clashed, and the red light was dazzling, making people shudder. The impact of the power made Butterfly in the flower's mouth bleed, and the hand holding the sword was also stained red. Under the suppression of the darkness in the human world, not only Ning Qin, but also Butterfly in the flower could not use all of her power. Butterfly dance, Qing Ping. The battle was not going well. Butterfly in the flower burial tear pulled out the white blade in the flower burial tear. The two blades crossed and two blade lights crisscrossed. The dark race expert waved the halberd to disperse the blade chi. Then, with a palm strike, a black aura spread out, and the surrounding space immediately turned dark. The darkness that even starlight could not fly out was like a black hole, swallowing all light. A shocking palm strike came out with earth-shattering force, mercilessly pressing down. At the moment of crisis, a sword of origin broke through the sky and blocked the dark palm. The shocking change made Butterfly in the flower's face filled with shock. It was Wild Sword. How could it be? Before she could finish her thoughts, a beam of light flew over from the distance. Wild appeared and blocked in front of her. Although the woman holding the sword was holding a sharp blade, her aura was still pure and untainted. The pure and flawless woman was like a white lotus in the cold winter, blooming proudly in the snow. Behind her, Butterfly in the flower looked at Wild, and the shock in her heart could not be suppressed for a long time. She wasn't shocked about why a man had appeared here, but how a man had been able to block that palm strike from before. With Wild's cultivation, it was impossible for her to block that palm strike. Between Butterfly in the flower and the dark race expert, Wild looked back and glanced at Ning Qin on the continent of the North Celestial Realm. She asked softly, "Senior Sister Butterfly, is he okay?" "His life is not in danger," Butterfly in the flower said. Hua Zhongdia said, "He has the origin of the immortal god tree to protect him. He will recover soon." Wild nodded slightly and felt relieved. In front of her, the dark race expert looked at the woman who had appeared and frowned. Strange, this human woman's cultivation was not so terrifying. Why could she block his palm strike so easily? With doubts in his heart, the dark race expert gathered all his power and decided to try again. The black halberd rang, and a beam of halberd light pierced through the sky and slashed down. The dark race expert was about to die. Wild moved, and the blue ancient sword in her hand bloomed with dazzling light, like autumn water, illuminating the world. At the same time, the black halberd light slashed down, and the majestic dark energy shocked the gods and demons in the 9 heavens. The darkness pressed down, and the sword light and halberd light clashed. The dark energy in the sky shook violently. Then it broke through. Ugh! The sword light broke the black halberd, and a curved divine gate slashed across. The dark race expert's body shook, and a sword mark that could not be healed appeared on his neck. Unable to believe it, the dark race expert knelt down and lowered his head. His vitality quickly dissipated. For the first time since the battle between darkness and light, the light had won. Chapter 1538. In the starry sky, the darkness fell and his soul returned to heaven and earth. In front of the broken continent of the North Celestial Realm, Hua Zhongdia looked at the scene in shock. But why did this happen? Hua Zhongdia was confused. Although man's cultivation was not weak, it was not the best either. Even she could not defeat the darkness cultivator, but man could easily defeat him. Although she had thousands of questions in her heart, Hua Zhongdia did not voice them out. She looked at the girl in front of her and said, "Man, come and help." Hearing this, Man put away the Taiyuan ancient sword and turned to rush forward. "Go and protect Ning Qin," Hua Zhongdia said softly. "Okay." Man nodded obediently. Man flew to the continent of the North Celestial Realm. Seeing the unconscious white-haired man in front of her, her eyes flashed with pain. Man moved. Light blue light spread out and protected her body. In front of her, Hua Zhongdia unleashed all her power. Huge black butterfly wings opened. Terrifying demonic essence surged and filled the entire starry sky. A cultivator of the Path Annihilation Realm was the closest to the monarch realm in the world. Hua Zhongdia's aura kept rising. Her water sleeves spread out and fixed in the North Celestial Realm. Then she flew forward with the North Celestial Realm. The demonic butterfly used all her power. Demonic essence surged in the entire North Celestial Realm. It was shocking. Man tried her best to protect the injured Ning Chen, not letting him be hurt by the demonic qi. In the Ziwei Galaxy, the cultivators of the human world were waiting for Knowing Destiny's return. They could not hide their anxiety. Knowing Destiny had unknowingly become their pillar of support. In the era of the great tribulation of heaven and earth, Knowing Destiny's departure made everyone feel uneasy. "It's here." At this moment, Inth, who was in front of everyone, saw the continent of the North Celestial Realm floating in the distance. Hearing this, everyone followed her gaze. When they saw the huge continent of the North Celestial Realm in the distance, everyone's expression froze. He was back. He was finally back. On the broken continent of the North Celestial Realm, Knowing Destiny woke up. With man's help, his injuries gradually healed. Ning Chen looked at the girl in front of him. He looked back and forth, unable to take his eyes off her. Man felt a bit uncomfortable. She asked softly, "What's wrong?" "Man, you've grown." A smile appeared on Ning Chen's face. Even though he had been unconscious all this while, he was aware of everything that had happened in the outside world. If he hadn't guessed wrong, the reason why the power of darkness was useless against Wild was because Wild's heart was pure. If there was no darkness in one's heart, one would naturally not fear the darkness. However, in this world, there was only a man who could truly achieve a heart without darkness. "Master." At this moment, flew over from afar. When she saw the bloodstains on the former's body, her big eyes immediately turned red. "Master, are you all right?" Rushed forward and asked anxiously. "It's nothing serious. I'll be fine after resting for a few days," Ning Chen said with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, powerhouses from the human world flew over from the starry sky to welcome the return of Knowing Destiny and Butterfly in Flowers. After a simple greeting, the powerhouses of the mortal world helped the butterfly in the flower to pull the North Celestial Realm into the Ziwei Galaxy. Beside Ning Chen, Qing Ning gazed at the 4 floating continents of the immortal realm. "Have you really decided to reopen the immortal region? This is not an easy task." Ning Chen nodded. "I understand. However, this is something that must be done. The mortal world needed hope. If the reopening of the immortal realm could bring a glimmer of hope to the mortal world, then it would be worth it. However, reopening the immortal region was indeed not an easy task. Pulling the 4 immortal realms back was only the beginning. He still had many things to do to restore the vitality and glory of the 4 immortal realms. Ning Chen looked at the girl not far away and called out. Hearing the call, flew over and asked in confusion, "Is something the matter?" "Go to the immortal realm and invite 2 people here," Ning Chen said seriously. Ning Chen said seriously, "Moon God and Rising Sun God. Remember, you must invite them nicely. Don't be rude." "All right." Accepted the order and did not stay. The laws of heaven and earth surrounded her and she disappeared into thin air. Ning Chen waved his hand and summoned the green cauldron. Illusory clouds filled the cauldron. It was a sky that had not yet fully grown. Ning Chen released the restriction in the cauldron and released the sky, allowing it to devour the power of the great world. In the starry sky, The great world that was about to collapse no longer had the power to cleanse the newly born will of heaven and earth. Before long, a huge cloud spread in the sky above the four immortal realms. It was endless and had no end in sight. The experts of the mortal realm were shocked by this scene. The will of heaven and earth, knowing destiny, was actually raising the sky. Little Gourd. After he was done, Ningchen spoke again. Senior Immortal. Hearing the call, the little gourd flew out in a wobbly manner. Ningchen stretched out his hand and pointed at the barren four immortal realms. Is there a way to restore life to these four lands? I don't need too much, just enough. The little gourd looked in the direction Ningchen pointed and thought for a moment before nodding. With that, the little gourd flew to the barren land of the immortal realm and dripped a drop of blood on it. Instantly, a smear of green appeared on the land of the immortal realm. With the little gourd as the center, it spread for 10 miles. 10 miles was full of vitality. In this barren land of the immortal realm, it was very eye-catching. Seeing this, Ningchen stepped forward. Creation was the domain of God. To some extent, the little gourd had power that humans could never reach, not even Ningchen. However, as long as there was vitality in the immortal realm, he had the ability to expand it infinitely. Ningchen stared at the endless barren land of the immortal realm. His cultivation base rose to the extreme. He was the only monarch of this era. There were some things that only he could do. Not far away, the experts of the mortal realm felt the powerful pressure from knowing destiny. Their hearts were in turmoil. Only by experiencing the power of knowing destiny could they clearly sense the real gap between them and monarch-level experts. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. It could be seen but not reached. Behind him, Butterfly in the Flower watched this scene in silence. He was really getting stronger and stronger. He was so strong that everyone could only look at his back. In the starry sky, the four broken lands rumbled and suddenly merged together. A moment later, with Ningchen as the center, the smear of green created by the little gourd quickly spread. Wherever there was vitality, spirit chi was reborn. Ningchen's domain was close to that of God. He performed an amazing miracle and restored life to the broken immortal realm. After an unknown period of time, the land of the immortal realm was full of lush green and full of vitality. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the Hua god and Yueshan walked out of the void and descended from the god realm to the mortal realm. Hua god Yueshan, please help. Ningchen looked up at the two in the sky and said. The rising sun Hua god and Yueshan looked at the immortal realm below and nodded at the same time. They worked together to create the sun and moon. In the next moment, the sun and moon were in the sky. Light illuminated the land of the immortal realm full of vitality. Chapter 1539. In the Ziwei star zone, the four ancient immortal realms merged. Ningchen displayed his monarch-level abilities and endowed the immortal realm with endless vitality. It was the closest domain to the gods. A single spark could start a prairie fire. Ningchen used 10 miles of greenery to recreate the glory of the ancient immortal realm. In the sky above the immortal realm, the experts of the mortal realm were shocked speechless when they saw this shocking scene. On the lush green immortal realm continent, the little gourd happily flew here and there, extremely happy. In the world Ningchen created, the little gourd no longer had to worry about anyone targeting it. It rode on its little gourd and played all over the mountains and plains. Beside the little gourd, there was a 9-tailed black fox that always followed quietly to protect the little gourd. On the immortal realm, after giving the immortal realm new life, Ningchen's energy gradually ran out. He looked exhausted. Even though his cultivation was #1 in the world and his foundation was unparalleled, he still couldn't bear such a shocking consumption of divine essence. Qing Ning walked over from behind and said softly, "Don't force yourself. There's still time." Ningchen smiled tiredly. There's not much time left. The collapsed world and the power of darkness left less and less time for the mortal realm. Qing Ning looked at Ah Man and said, "I heard from Miss Dai that it was Ah Man who saved you?" Ningchen nodded. Ah Man has the purest soul in the world. In this great calamity, she might be the key for us to deal with the darkness. Ning Chen. Hesitation flashed in Qing Ning's eyes. Ning Chen was puzzled. What's wrong? Qing Ning thought for a moment and finally asked the question in her heart. Have you ever thought that a man might be the reincarnation of an ancient immortal? Although she didn't believe in reincarnation like him, a man's situation was too special. The power of darkness made everyone helpless. Only a man didn't fear the power of darkness. This was really surprising. Ning Chen fell silent. After a long time, he sighed. I suspected that too. However, even the ancient immortals couldn't fight against the darkness. This possibility isn't big. Qing Ning nodded. Perhaps that was the case. As the two talked, the moon goddess and the rising sun god worked together to create the sun and moon, giving the immortal realm new laws of heaven and earth. Only with the cycle of the sun and moon could the immortal domain have endless vitality. After the two gods created the sun and the moon, they left and did not stay in the human world for too long. Not even the god realm was spared from the calamity of the three realms. As the rulers of the southern region of the god realm, the moon god and the rising sun god could not leave for long periods of time. In the sky above the immortal domain, the sun and moon began to rotate. On the great earth of the immortal domain, flowers and trees were full of vitality, making one sigh in admiration. However, Ning Chen understood that the immortal realms still lacked something. If the continents of the immortal realms couldn't reproduce independently, then once the greater world collapsed, the immortal realms would also be affected. Ning Chen stared at the clouds in the sky with a solemn expression. This was a part of the sky that he had captured. For 1,000 years, it had been sealed in the green cauldron and raised in captivity. Although it grew quickly, it was still unable to replace the real sky. The heavenly Daos of the three realms had evolved for countless years, and there was a qualitative difference between the two. In ancient times, the four great immortal realms were destroyed by the great tribulation of heaven and earth because they were unable to break free from the shackles of the macro world. He had learned from his predecessors' mistakes, so he had to have a backup plan. He couldn't make the same mistake again. The four symbols deities. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. The four symbols deities were gods from the beginning of creation. Perhaps they could help this world grow. There were descendants of the black tortoise and azure dragon in the inner realms. He had the white tiger's divine weapon of slaughter in his hand. There were traces of the white tiger's blood on it. With the help of the small gourd, he should be able to revive a part of the white tiger's origin. Now, the only problem was the vermilion bird's origin. The whereabouts of the vermilion bird had disappeared for a long time, and he didn't know where to find it. Vermilion bird! Ning Chen looked at the sky and shouted, Ji Ming has a request. An earth-shaking voice accompanied by an astonishing fluctuation of divine origins spread into the distance. In every major galaxy, ordinary people heard this loud voice and their faces were filled with shock. Somewhere, a red-clothed vermilion bird heard the voice from the edge of the starry sky and her expression turned serious. It's him. Without hesitation, the vermilion bird spread open its wings and flew towards the edge of the starry sky. Qianshang, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip. On the immortal realms, Ning Chen collected his thoughts and looked at Mu Qianshang not far away. What is it? Mu Qianshang asked. Go to the inner realms and invite the descendants of the black tortoise and water god Tianwu. Ning Chen said seriously. Mu Qianshang nodded and did not say anything. He turned and flew towards the inner realms. Mu Qianshang left. Beside Qing Ning, Ning Chen looked at the vast immortal realms as thoughts flashed through his eyes. Was there anything missing? Cough cough. Suddenly, Ning Chen's face flushed red. His body trembled and he vomited a mouthful of blood. After the battle with the four heavenly kings of darkness, his body still had not recovered from the serious injuries. Now, in order to reopen the immortal realms, Ning Chen's body was finding it harder and harder to hold on. On the side, Qing Ning was shocked and hurried forward to support the former. You're pushing yourself too hard. Qing Ning's face flashed with anger as she shouted. Sister Qing Ning, I'm fine. Ning Chen gently pushed away the woman beside him. His tired eyes were still filled with thoughts. There really wasn't much time left. This great calamity was different from the past. When the gods destroyed the world, they left a glimmer of hope for the human world. However, this great calamity was not only the calamity of the heavenly Tao, but also the calamity of darkness. Whether it was facing the heavenly Tao or the darkness, the power of humans was too weak and could not compete at all. Even the current him was at a disadvantage when facing the heavenly Tao and the darkness. If he wanted to turn the situation around, he could only rebuild the immortal realms as soon as possible. On the immortal realms, the sun rose and set. For countless days and nights, the powerhouses of the human world gathered from all over to watch the master of the human world create the world. Ning Chen coughed up blood several times. His injuries were repeated and there was no room for him to rest. This familiar scene was like a scene from the ancient times. The master of the human world gave his all to fight for a glimmer of hope for the human world. Ning Chen was like a mad demon. No one could persuade him. He gave his all to rebuild the immortal realms. Even though his will gradually became heavy, Ning Chen knew better than anyone what he wanted to do. He wanted to leave the last piece of sky for them. Just as Ji Ming was doing his best to rebuild the immortal realms, in the Wanxiang starfield, a majestic voice came out of the spatial rift, giving a dark order. Ming Yuan, before I come out of seclusion, destroy the human world and take back the 4 immortal slaying swords. In the nether prison, Ming Yuan half knelt and respectfully accepted the order. In the next moment, the power of darkness spread all over the Wanxiang starfield. The Grim Reaper was born, and the nether prison appeared in the human world. In the starry sky, a towering black city was surrounded by darkness. The power of darkness officially descended on the human world. In an instant, the entire Wanxiang starfield sank, and countless creatures were swallowed by the darkness. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.